Chapter 201. When Qin Guang arrived at his mother's ward, Tang Ying was just walking out. "Thank you, little Tang, for taking so much trouble for us," Qin Guoli said with a smile as he walked Tang Ying out. These days, Qin Guoli was more and more impressed by Dr. Tang's medical skills. Even though Professor Liu was a well-known expert, Professor Liu was very busy. Even though he had the title of Chief Physician Feng Rong, he only came to visit twice a day. When Qin Guoli went to look for him, he was usually not around. On the other hand, even though Tang Ying had many other patients, she was exceptionally attentive to Feng Rong. Not only did she fulfill her duties as a doctor, but she would sometimes come over to chat with Feng Rong before she got off work. She would often chat with her for half an hour. In addition, Tang Ying's medical skills weren't bad, and her analysis of the patient's condition was clear and organized. Qin Guoli often saw her communicating with the family members of the patients she was responsible for, and they were all convinced by her. Therefore he liked Dr. Tang even more. As Tang Ying walked out, she turned around and said to Qin Guoli with a smile, "Uncle Qin, you're too kind. I'm friends with Qin Guang and I'm also Auntie Feng's doctor. It's my duty, my duty." When Qin Guoli heard this, he said, "Qin Guang, that kid, how dare he question your medical skills? I'll teach him a lesson later. How can he treat his friends like that? Dr. Tang, I'll definitely help you." "Oh Uncle Qin, you're too kind. Don't beat him too hard, after all he's still taking his final exam." Tang Ying's face was full of smiles as she walked out triumphantly. "You're right, then I'll beat him up after the exam." Qin Guang, who had been standing by the door and listening to their conversation, was speechless. This Tang Ying was not someone to be trifled with. How long had it been? Not only did she tease him every time, she even tried to sow discord with his father. What did she mean by "don't beat him too hard"? Speaking of which, when did my relationship with her become this good? Why didn't I notice it myself? As soon as Tang Ying turned around the corner, he immediately saw Qin Guang standing beside him with a dark face. Not only did he not feel guilty, he even raised his eyebrows and showed a provocative expression. Then he took small light steps and swayed his hips as he walked away. Qin Guang covered his face with his hands. He felt that this woman had something on him that could be used against him. He strode into the intensive care unit, and before he turned the corner he heard Qin Guoli and Feng Rong chatting. "Old Qin, do you think Dr. Little Tang is interested in our little Guang? She's so enthusiastic that I'm a little embarrassed," Feng Rong said. Qin Guoli coughed. "My dear wife, don't make wild guesses." It seemed that Dr. Little Tang and Little Guang had known each other for a long time and were true friends. Well, it's not bad if she's really interested in him. Although Dr. Little Tang is a few years older than Little Guang, doctors seem to be quite good at taking care of their health. When Little Guang is 24, Dr. Little Tang will only be 30 and can have at least 2 more children. Dr. Little Tang's medical skills are high, she's diligent, educated, and has a good personality. She's really made for a good wife. It's just that being a doctor is a little tiring, but it's young people's business, so let them be. Listening to Qin Guoli's words, Qin Guang's scalp tingled with goosebumps when his father called him his dear wife, and then he was embarrassed by the latter half of his sentence. He rushed out. "What nonsense are you talking about?" The 2 elders were startled by Qin Guang's sudden appearance. Qin Guoli waved his hands. No, I didn't say anything." It was clear that his father's shamelessness was superior to Qin Guang's, and his ability to lie through his teeth was top-notch. Qin Guang knew that once he started acting shamelessly, he would never admit to what he just said, and there was nothing he could do about it. Qin Guang sat down and chatted with his parents again, especially looking at the new checkup reports that came out recently. He saw that there were fewer plus and minus signs and all the indicators were improving, and he was relieved. He found an opportunity to call Qin Guoli upstairs again, and Qin Guang planned to transfer money to him. "If you have something to say, hurry up and say it. Your mom opened the Langya board again when we just left the house, and I'll miss a lot of time again if she drags on," Qin Guoli said anxiously. Qin Guang was defeated and he took a deep breath. "Dad, I have something to tell you and it's very important." Seeing that he was serious, Qin Guoli knew that it was something important and he did not rush him. He nodded. "Okay, I'm listening. Promise me that you won't be too emotional after you hear it, and you have to calm down first. It's probably related to the watch that Jiang Yage wanted to give me. I got the watch and sold it and I got the money." Qin Guang swallowed his saliva and said carefully. Qin Guoli waved his hand nonchalantly. Hey, seeing how serious you are, I thought it was something important, but it's just a small matter. Didn't you say it once? As long as I got the money, it's fine. I'll ask your uncle to cancel the contract with the other party later. Damn. So you're still planning to sell your house? Qin Guang spat. Qin Guoli smiled embarrassedly. I'm just trying to be safe. The transplant is so important and I'm afraid that something might go wrong. Tell me, how much did you sell it for? I've been in the business for most of my life and I'm very knowledgeable. How much money have I not seen? Didn't you already give me a heads up? Tell me. Qin Guang felt that Su Tao's father was right. After all, back then the hot pot restaurant could earn tens of thousands of profit in a month, and it could even reach hundreds of thousands during peak seasons. His father was someone who had seen the world. 1,200,000 yen. Dad. Dad. Wake up, Dad. Less than 5 seconds after Qin Guang said that, Qin Guoli's eyes rolled back, and he fell on his back without any hesitation. Qin Guang shouted as he hugged his father and pinched his philtrum a few times. This businessman who had boasted about his big heart just now slowly woke up. He opened his eyes in a daze and looked at Qin Guang. What did you say? How much did you say just now? Qin Guang answered subconsciously, 2 million. Qin Guoli's head tilted and he fainted again. Half an hour later, Qin Guang looked at his father with disdain. He a businessman. This is the legendary businessman who has been in the business for most of his life. You're really knowledgeable. Qin Guoli's face was red. It was too embarrassing. You can't blame me for this. Didn't you say it was 400,000 to 500,000 at the start? It suddenly increased by so many times and we've been poor for so long. We can't get used to it in a short time. This is too sudden. Qin Guang spat at him. All right. I'll transfer the money to you. After Qin Guang had transferred the money, Qin Guoli said faintly, a big star is a big star indeed. She's really willing to pay so much to keep a pretty boy as a mistress. The first thing she did was something so valuable. It's like she's treating money like it's nothing. Qin Guang retorted, you pretty boy. How can you talk about your son like that? Besides, this is them thanking me for saving their lives. It's not a mistress fee. Qin Guoli looked like he understood. Explaining is equivalent to covering up. Don't quibble. As for the overnight fee, I understand. But then again, you earn so much by ringing the bell. The workload must be quite heavy, right? I want to cut ties with you again. Don't. I'm not joking with you. You may be young now, but men and women are different in this aspect. If you overwork at a young age, it'll be easy for you to feel weak in the future. I'm doing this for your own good, really. It's said that you get what you pay for. If you hadn't worked so hard, would they have offered you such a price? He really lost to him. Qin Guang covered his face and retreated, not daring to return to the ward. He really regretted lying to his father that he was Jiang Yage's mistress. Was it a huge mistake? I've lost. I lost because I didn't see your bottom line clearly. However, the words had already been said. No matter how much his father cheated him, he could only grit his teeth and admit defeat. After Qin Guang left, Qin Guoli accompanied Feng Rong to watch television in the ward. However, he still felt uneasy and full of thoughts. Feng Rong was annoyed by his behavior. She glared at him and said, "Can't you just watch television?" Qin Guoli sighed as if he had made up his mind. He stood up abruptly and said, "You watch it yourself, I'm going to ask Dr. Tang something." After walking out of the ward, Qin Guoli sighed again and said to himself, "This kid doesn't know how to behave. He really thinks I'm joking with him. No, as a father, I have to think about my son's future. His expenses are too high. 2 million yuan for the night. That's too much work. Celebrities nowadays are scary. His body needs to be healed, he really needs to be healed. Otherwise, it'll be a big problem in the future." Then the problem was, how was he going to make it up? He decided to ask Tang Ying about this. It wasn't that he was shameless, but he couldn't ask Professor Lu, who was a respected old man. After thinking about it, since Tang Ying and Qin Guang were friends and he was half of Qin Guang's elder, and she was also an outstanding doctor, it wasn't inappropriate to ask her. Patients couldn't hide their illness for fear of treatment. This was embarrassing, but if he didn't tell the doctor, he wouldn't die of illness. He was in the hospital and Dr. Tang was a nice person. If he didn't ask her, he couldn't ask her, right? Of course, he could find a random relative to take the blame. There was no need to let her know that it was Qin Guang who wanted it. Chapter 202. The next day, Qin Guang received a call from his father, asking him to go to the hospital. He had to go no matter what, as if it was something very important. When he asked his father, he only said that his mother's mood suddenly became unstable and wanted him to come over and chat with her. Qin Guang quickly rushed out of the study room and drove straight to the city hospital. Auntie was the most important thing in the world. When he reached the hospital, his mother was fine, but she questioned why he went to the hospital again. Qin Guang angrily pulled Qin Guoli out of the ward. Dad, what are you doing? I'm studying for the exam. Qin Guoli patted his shoulder. She was a little emotional just now, but she's fine now. She misses you, but she won't let me call you. Now that you're here, she won't admit it. Forget it. Then I'll go back? Qin Guoli hurriedly grabbed him and pulled out a lunchbox from behind. Wait, you've been so busy lately. The food at school isn't good. Since I had nothing to do last night, I made you a big soup. Take it home and eat it. Qin Guang always felt that his father's behavior was not right. He had grown up for so many years, but when had he ever made soup for him? Why are you looking at me like that? Don't tell me that I, your father, would poison you? Qin Guoli had a guilty conscience in his heart, but he still put on a fierce expression and glared fiercely. Qin Guang quickly took the lunchbox. Okay, go back. I'll take it home and eat it, okay? Qin Guoli was happy. He turned around and walked 2 steps, then turned back and said, This is your father's painstaking effort. Don't share it with others. Eat it alone. After that, Qin Guoli closed the ward door and clenched his fist. Done. Kiki. Qin Guang made a face and planned to go back to school. Isn't this a waste of my time? Passing by Tang Ying's office, Qin Guang saw her walking out in casual clothes with a big bag on her back. Qin Guang, who was already experienced in this, grinned and greeted her. Yo, are you coming home from work? Tang Ying looked up and saw that it was him. She was amused. What? You want to see me off? Qin Guang grinned. If Dr. Tang needs it, I'll do it. Since they were already familiar with each other, Tang Ying did not stand on ceremony with him. As usual, he tossed the big bag on his back. Qin Guang caught it with one hand and passed the lunchbox to Tang Ying with his right hand. Help me carry this. Your bag sure is heavy. Looking at the lunchbox in Qin Guang's hand, Tang Ying was stunned for a moment before she took it. Qin Guang put his bag on his back. Give me the lunchbox. Tang Ying had already walked forward. You're already carrying such a heavy bag for me. How can I let you carry the lunchbox yourself? What's inside? What's delicious? Did your dad ask you to bring it back to school? Qin Guang curled his lips indifferently. My dad said he made soup for me yesterday. What else could it be? Oh. Tang Ying didn't say anything else. Yesterday, Qin Guoli came to her shyly and only told her that he had a relative who was in trouble. That relative heard him boasting about how great his medical skills were as a returned doctor, so he begged him to see if he could get a prescription from him no matter what. It didn't matter if it was a traditional Chinese medicine prescription or a diet method, as long as it could nourish yang and nourish the kidney. At that time, Tang Ying thought it was funny. She didn't study traditional Chinese medicine, so she wanted to refuse. However, when she saw Qin Guoli's face turning red with embarrassment, she told Qin Guoli about a diet method that her mother had copied from the internet some time ago, which was said to be very useful. It was probably called rejuvenating soup or something, and she managed to convince him. This rejuvenating soup could be called a traditional Chinese medicine prescription or a diet method. There were precious Chinese medicinal materials like desert sistanche, cheap medicinal plants like dodder, and high-nutrition food like huai yam. The others were walnut kernels, round-grained rice, and other seasonings. The main ingredients were lean mutton and lamb's spine. This kind of prescription might not necessarily be useful, but it was also not accurate to say that it was completely useless. People had different physiques. Some people had tried this kind of diet method and the effect was incredible, but there were also people who didn't have any effect at all. It just varied from person to person. Tang Ying had told this to Qin Guoli and then left it at the back of her mind. After all, she was the attending physician of more than 10 patients, and she was busy all day long. She didn't have the time to remember so many things in her mind. Now that she got off work and met Qin Guang on her way home, she could finally relax. Holding the lunchbox in her hand, her mind became active. On the way home, she finally couldn't help raising the lunchbox a little higher without batting an eyelid. She put her nose close to the lid and sniffed hard. He suddenly understood. Then she looked at the back of Qin Guang in front of her with a strange look in her eyes. Poor parents. Qin Guoli's extremely embarrassed look yesterday came to her mind again. It turned out that the so-called relative he couldn't refuse was Qin Guang. That's right. Perhaps only for his own son would an old man like Qin Guoli not care about his reputation and ask her that kind of question. But Qin Guang was even more pitiful. He was young and should be at the age where he was full of vigor and vitality. How could he have a problem in this aspect? Then she thought of Qin Guang's words and actions when she was sent home for the first time. Combined with today's lunchbox that was filled with the smell of sheep's blood, Tang Ying understood everything. No wonder he could be so calm and composed when he was drunk. Admittedly, his personal character was very noble, but there must be a reason in this aspect. He was just a young and inexperienced student. I was completely drunk and unconscious, but he didn't take advantage of me at all. When I woke up, his attitude towards me was so bad. I thought I became ugly after coming back to China, but it turned out that he had a problem first. Pitiful, sad, lamentable. Qin Guang walked in front. Suddenly he felt a strong itch on his back. He turned around and saw Tang Ying looking at him with a strange expression. Her eyes were unfocused as if she was daydreaming. What's wrong with you? You should rest your brain for a bit after work. Don't think about work for now. Tang Ying snapped back to reality and forced a smile. When she looked at Qin Guang's bright smile, she felt a pain in her heart. Sigh, what a pitiful boy. What a tough life. You are strong. Your mother is sick and you have a problem with your body. But you still smile at life and shoulder the burden of the family. No matter how hard and tired you are, I never see you show the slightest bit of sadness. But you always care about others and hide your own pain in your heart. You're my friend. You saved me from the hands of two hooligans. I owe you a great favor. Although I treated your mother, it was my duty. I am both a doctor and your friend. Since I know you have this problem, I can't ignore it. I can't let you go on like this. I have to help you. Otherwise, my conscience won't be at peace. Chapter 203. Tang Ying thought to herself, if it's a middle-aged or elderly person, diet therapy or Chinese medicine may be effective. But for a young man like Qin Guang who's only in his 20s to fail, there must be a serious problem with his physiological function or one of his organs. Indeed, I can only use Western medicine to solve this problem. When we arrive at Guanghua Street, I'll let him come to my house and have an open talk with him. If it doesn't work, I'll arrange for him to have a checkup, hospitalization and surgery. Tang Ying was relieved after making up her mind. As the youngest genius doctor in Moorlands Medical College in the past 20 years, she was a top expert in nephrology. Since Qin Guang didn't seem to have any problems in other aspects, Tang Ying was confident that she could completely cure him. She quickened her pace to Qin Guang's side and looked at him with a smile, which made Qin Guang's hair stand on end. She said, "Do you believe in my medical skills now?" Qin Guang covered his face. I believe you. I completely believe you. Sis, it was my fault for doubting you before. I apologize. I'm sorry, please let me go. How many times have you said it? Tang Ying raised her eyebrows. It's good that you believe me. Don't hide things in your heart. We're friends, right? Qin Guang nodded. He really felt that Tang Ying was a good person, a good doctor, and a responsible and enthusiastic person. Of course we are. Tang Ying grinned and patted Qin Guang's shoulder again. It's good that you think so too. I won't stand by and watch my friends suffer. I'll help you. In the name of the best doctor in Moorlands Medical College. My academic achievements in nephrology may not be among the best in the world, but they're definitely not bad. 2 years ago, I even won the American Medical Gold Medal for a paper related to nephrology. It's an award with great influence around the world. I have a high chance of curing your condition. Qin Guang thought she was talking about his mother's illness. Although he didn't understand why she specifically emphasized this matter to him, he thought she might be trying to make him feel better. He was excited and couldn't control his emotions. He suddenly raised his hands to grab Tang Ying's shoulders and said heavily, "Thank you. It's great to meet you." Tang Ying was taken aback by Qin Guang's sudden attack, but she quickly calmed down. Sure enough, no young man would be able to remain calm after having that kind of problem. Since he was so happy, it meant that he was willing to cooperate with the treatment, which made things easier. What she was afraid of was that he was hiding his illness for fear of treatment. When Qin Guang dropped Tang Ying off at Guanghua Street Section 3 and was about to pull over to wait for her to get out, Tang Ying said, "Don't park outside, go to my neighborhood." Come to my house, I want to have a good chat with you. On the other hand, Qin Guang was overjoyed. He couldn't wait to discuss his mother's condition with Tang Ying. How could other patients' family members interact with a chief physician like this? Doctors were humans too, and they had to work. They only had so much time and energy every day, and they were not the only patients they were responsible for. They had to think about so many patients' conditions at the same time, and they couldn't afford to make any mistakes. How could they treat him like Tang Ying? You live in such a big house all by yourself? Qin Guang said to Tang Ying as he tossed his backpack onto the sofa. Tang Ying's house was located in a high-end neighborhood on Guanghua Street Section 3. It was indeed very big. Upon entering the house, there was a spacious living room that was 10 meters in length. Looking around, the floor area was at least 150 square meters. Next to the living room, there was a huge floor-to-ceiling glass that was nearly 7 meters tall, which clearly told Qin Guang that this house was a duplex. The room was very tidy, and the bright sunlight shone in through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows. The lighting of the whole house couldn't be any better. As for this large duplex facing south, Qin Guang roughly calculated in his heart. My goodness, just based on this location and the subway station next to it, this house with a total area of nearly 300 square meters would cost at least 5 or 6 million. What a rich woman. Golden thighs. Can I give you a hug? Tang Ying poured a glass of water for Qin Guang indifferently. Yeah, I also feel that this house is too big. Luckily, I'm a medical student, so I'm not afraid of ghosts. Otherwise, I would have been scared to death sleeping alone in this big empty house every day. How did you know I live alone? Qin Guang chuckled. There's only one style of shoes on the shoe rack. You're quite observant. Tang Ying rolled her eyes at him and sat down beside him. Qin Guang took out his own glass and poured the water Tang Ying poured into his own. Tang Ying looked at him curiously. I didn't expect you to be so particular. You always bring your own glass with you wherever you go. This is a good habit for hygiene. Qin Guang laughed. It's not that I'm particular. It's just that I have a weird habit when it comes to drinking water. I like the taste of this Biluakun tea. Tang Ying stood up and took a square box from the bookshelf. She threw it in front of Qin Guang. I didn't expect you to like tea at such a young age. I have a box of Thai guanyin from the patient's family. Seems pretty good. But I don't like tea. I'll leave it here for the rest of my life. You can have it. Thai guanyin. Qin Guang suddenly recalled the time when he was sharpening pencils. He slammed his head on the steel like tea leaves. His face hurt. He wanted to refuse, but he looked at the brand silently. Oh, I know this brand. It's worth nearly 10,000 yuan. Thanks. Old Master Guang was so straightforward. As the two of them sat down and chatted for a long time, Qin Guang started to feel baffled. Why was she talking about something else and not the main topic? Didn't she call me over to talk about my mother's condition? What was her motive? Showing off? That's possible. Just for this box of Thai guanyin, I'll give her 32 likes for showing off. Tang Ying was also having a headache. Although she was a doctor, she had taken off her white coat. Moreover, she was in her own home. The smell was a little off. She was not as professional as she was in the office. She felt a little reserved. When it came to that kind of thing, she was a little thin-skinned and could not take the initiative to ask. But Qin Guang was also talking about other things. Tang Ying thought to herself, I've hinted so clearly just now. He seems to understand, but why doesn't he take the initiative to ask? He's still a child after all. He's thin-skinned and is hiding his illness for fear of treatment. What should I do? I can't let him get away with it at this time, right? Tang Ying looked around and saw the lunchbox on the coffee table. He had an idea. She pretended not to know the inside story and said, It's almost 6 o'clock. Why don't you have dinner before leaving? The soup in your lunchbox smells good. Do you mind sharing it with me? I want to eat your rejuvenation soup. I don't believe you won't be anxious. She actually invited me to dinner. Is it because I'm too handsome that she has fallen for me? That's possible. After all, she's really rich. Qin Guang readily agreed. As for his father's instructions, he had long forgotten. Tang Ying was dumbfounded. His reaction was not right. Chapter 204. Tang Ying couldn't hold it in any longer. You're giving me the rejuvenating soup too? Qin Guang was puzzled. Rejuvenating soup? What's that? Isn't this my dad's soup? Since it's meant to be eaten, what's the difference between one person and two people? Tang Ying asked curiously. You really don't know what the rejuvenating soup is for? As she spoke, she gently opened the lunchbox, afraid that a drop of soup would spill out. She opened it and saw that it was indeed the same thing. Lamb spine, lean lamb, Chinese yam, walnut meat, etc. She said, Your dad came looking for me yesterday and I gave him the formula for the rejuvenating soup. Qin Guang had a bad feeling about this. Can you tell me what this rejuvenating soup is for? Tang Ying was infuriated by his stubbornness. I've already flipped the table and you still won't admit it? What the hell is this? She slammed the coffee table and said loudly, It's for strengthening the kidneys. Don't pretend. I know all about it. It's hard for young people to talk about it, but you can't refuse medical treatment just because of this. You have to be responsible for your future. Hiss hiss hiss. Qin Guang sucked in a breath of cold air. My dad. Your son is really screwed over by you this time. Oh my god. Look at her expression. What's she thinking? Why would Qin Guoli ask for the formula? Qin Guang could roughly guess. He really felt that he had worked so hard every day to get that one. 2 million yuan watch. And then there was this box of soup. But you should have told me in advance. Are you afraid that I won't eat it after knowing the truth? Fine, I really won't eat it. But this is the formula you asked for from Tang Ying, and now I'm sitting in her house with this box. Look at her expression. Damn. Does she really think that I have a problem in that area? I won't be able to clear my name even if I jump into the Yellow River. Admit it, right? Although this phenomenon is rare among young people, it's not completely unprecedented. Although I've never met a patient like this before, I'm really confident. The earlier you get treatment, the earlier you recover, the earlier you regain your manhood. Why are you hiding your illness for fear of treatment? Do you really want to be useless for the rest of your life? As Tang Ying spoke, she inched her face closer and closer. She wanted to use this kind of domineering attitude to break through the fragile defenses of the patient, Qin Guang. Qin Guang took a few steps back. I really don't know how to explain this. Could I tell her that I told Dad that I was Jiang Yade's sugar baby, and that Dad was afraid that I would be overworked? So he asked for the prescription? Can I even say that out loud? What else could he say? My heart felt stifled. With my life experience, I really didn't know how to explain why a father would prepare a box of recovery soup for his 20-something-year-old son. Help me. The god of adaptability. Qin Guang's prayer was useless. Tang Ying saw that she had subdued him, so she didn't force him anymore. Instead, she took a few steps back. All right, stop stuttering. Since you're a patient, you should explain your condition properly. Qin Guang clutched his head. What are you thinking? It's really not like that. Tang Ying rolled her eyes at him and stood up abruptly. She stood in front of him. Lift your head. Open your eyes wide. Look at me. Qin Guang followed her instructions and lifted his head to look at her. I'm a doctor. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm definitely the most talented doctor you know. From now on, don't treat me as Tang Ying. Don't treat me as your friend. I'm your Dr. Tang. Do you hear me? Tang Ying placed her hands on her hips and said domineeringly. She looked like she was going to eat him up. Otherwise, I'll just bluff my way through and let her think whatever she wants. Otherwise, I won't be able to come here today. He nodded his head with difficulty. All right, Dr. Tang. Tang Ying laughed. As she spoke, her eyes drifted to Qin Guang's crotch. That's right. Tell me, roughly how old were you when you couldn't get a hard-on? This is the 7th floor. If I take a leap of faith from here, I'll definitely be able to ascend to heaven, right? If I want to die, don't ask me why. No, I really can't stay here any longer. Qin Guang got up. He couldn't care less about Tai Guanyin and the lunchbox anymore. He only grabbed the heavenly holy grail and wanted to run away. You want to leave? Tang Ying glared at him angrily. She opened her arms and blocked his way. Stop right there. This doctor has already made things clear today. Don't even think of running away. Tell me clearly about your condition. Come and register yourself tomorrow. I'll arrange a checkup for you. Big sis. Please let me go. I really can't explain it clearly. But it's really not what you think. I can do it. Qin Guang looked like he was about to cry. He really couldn't explain it clearly. Tang Ying pushed him hard, causing him to fall back onto the sofa. She pounced on him. You're still so stubborn. I'll make you reveal your true colors today. I'm a doctor. You're a patient. How dare you hide your illness in front of me? Before she finished her sentence, Tang Ying had already made up her mind. In order to make Qin Guang reveal his true colors, she finally used her ultimate move, Flying Dragon Cloud Palm. She pinched him through his pants. Qin Guang was completely dumbfounded. But, why are you so tough? How could he understand that Tang Ying as a doctor treated him as a friend? She also felt that she owed him a big favor and was worried about him. She also felt that doctors shouldn't care about their patients, and she was anxious and impatient. That was why she finally came up with this plan. Tang Ying saw that he finally stopped struggling. Although she was also extremely embarrassed, she clenched her teeth and pressed her body forward. With Qin Guang on the bottom and her body on top, she exerted more force on her fingers. This guy's bad thing, although he had that kind of problem, seemed to be much bigger than the autopsy she had seen in school. At this moment, this thought popped into Tang Ying's mind. Completely dumbfounded, Qin Guang didn't know how to describe his current state. All he knew was that he was being pinned down by Tang Ying. Although she did not completely press her body down, her awkward position caused her to completely crawl in front of him. She forced herself to raise her head to look, but her shameless gaze was fiercely drilling into her collar in front of her. The two of them were so close. Her crawling position caused her collar to be completely open. His gaze penetrated straight into her black lace bra. Sensing her heavy breathing just inches away from him, old Master Guang's willpower completely crumbled as Tang Ying tightened her grip. Dong. Tang Ying was about to expose Qin Guang's final layer of disguise by saying that he didn't have any reaction even when she was in this state, when she suddenly felt a strong force on her hand. Her hand seemed to have been pushed away by someone. What a strong force. She turned her head and looked down in a daze. Her hand was still grabbing onto something. Perhaps it was a snake previously, but now it seemed like she was grabbing onto a flagpole. It was so high up. This time not only was Qin Guang in a daze, Tang Ying wasn't any better either. What exactly went wrong? Sis. At this moment, a scream came from the entrance of the living room. Qin Guang and Tang Ying turned their heads in that direction in unison. They saw a handsome young man who looked similar to Tang Ying standing there, looking in their direction in horror. It was as if he had seen the end of the world. Little Kai, things aren't what you think. This time it was Tang Ying's turn to say the same thing. The sad thing was, even though her brain had completely gone off the rails, she still forgot to let go of her hand, making her quibble seem so unconvincing. Chapter 205. 5 minutes later, Tang Xiaokai barely managed to control his overly shocked emotions. This was too scary. His sister actually had a man. His sister, who only knew how to dissect a living person and tear a lab rat with her bare hands, actually had a man. What's more, he's doing such an improper thing in the living room in broad daylight. Tang Ying explained to him for a full 5 minutes, but Tang Xiaokai couldn't believe her excuses no matter what. You're patient? You want to treat him? He refused to admit it, so you resorted to such a method? Trying to force him to show his true colors? Do you think your little brother is only 3 years old? Your little brother is already 24 years old. Your little brother is no longer a naive little brother who doesn't know anything, alright? Although I definitely don't dare to let you know about this, don't treat me like a child. Qin Guang. Hurry up and help me explain. Tang Ying saw that she couldn't get through to him and felt a headache coming on. If she had seen this happen to someone else, she wouldn't have believed it herself. Up until now, Qin Guang had just retreated from the tent. No matter what she said, it wasn't convincing at all. Qin Guang's face was red as he stood in front of Tang Ying and Tang Xiaokai. He thought to himself, I'm also very hurt, I don't even know what happened and you've already molested me like this. How do you want me to explain? Lord Guang, who had always prided himself on being experienced, asked guiltily. Tang Ying snorted, this is my biological little brother. Tell him that what he saw just now was me examining you, and I want to prove that you're a patient. This woman wants me to admit that I'm useless and our friendship is over. Do you believe me? My dragon raising its head is so mighty and domineering, do you think he's blind? Let's go. This time Qin Guang remembered to pick up Tai Guanyin and wanted to leave. Unexpectedly, it was 2 people who stopped him this time. Tang Ying's face was red. She also felt that things were too deceptive, too strange, and her mind was still dizzy. Perhaps I made a mistake? Although he had problems in that area, he could still rise, but the time would be very short. That's right. That must be it. I got the wrong direction. Forget it, my brother is here today, so I can't talk about this anymore. I'll ask him in private next time. Tang Xiaokai, on the other hand, was sizing up his sister's man from head to toe, trying to figure out his identity. He was dressed in cheap casual clothes and his family conditions were not very good. Forget it. Our family is not short of money anyway. If we have to find someone of the same age who is richer than our family to marry, based on her arrogance and her dislike of those rich young masters, she might be single for the rest of her life. But then again, isn't this Qin Guang a little too young? She looks a little younger than me. Although I'm almost as handsome and tall as you, how can you be younger than me? Of course, what this young master is most unhappy about is that my older sister actually got together with you without saying a word. As his younger brother, I'm not convinced. I don't recognize you now. I'm going to check for my sister. Bro, I've been here for so long that I forgot to introduce myself to you. Hello, I'm Tang Xiaokai, Tang Ying's younger brother, younger than my sister by 2 years. You're Qin Guang, right? Why don't you introduce yourself? Tang Xiaokai made up his mind, grinned, and took the initiative to shake hands with Qin Guang. Tang Ying, on the other hand, felt strange. This troublesome brother of his doesn't seem to be pestering about that matter anymore. On the other side, Qin Guang finally let out a sigh of relief. He wasn't afraid of the heavens or the earth, but he was afraid that Tang Xiaokai would pester him about that matter. After all, he was Tang Ying's younger brother, Tang Ying's family, so how could he explain this kind of thing? Slightly relieved, he extended his hand and shook hands with Tang Xiaokai. Hello, I'm Qin Guang, a family member of Tang Ying's patient. Also a friend. Tang Xiaokai smacked his lips. Friend? Not a bad friend. But Tang Ying slapped Tang Xiaokai's face hard. Kid, I'm warning you, don't talk about my sister's matters again. Even if you tell Dad about this, I'll beat you to death. You've become a boss, haven't you? You think I won't dare to beat you up? I'll fight you to the death. Tang Xiaokai hugged his head and shrunk to the side, feeling the pain from Tang Ying's slap. Seeing that he had finally angered Tang Ying, he was scared and immediately became quiet. Sis. I was wrong, sis. I won't talk about it anymore. I won't talk about it anymore. Tang Ying's slap made Tang Xiaokai recall the countless painful experiences he had since he was young. Cold sweat broke out on his back, thinking, sis, you can be fierce to me. I can't afford to mess with you, but can't I mess with little brother Qin Guang? You hit me. I'll take care of your man. The three of them argued for a while, and under Tang Xiaokai's suggestion, they decided to go out for dinner. On the way downstairs, they continued to ramble. Gradually, Qin Guang learned about Tang Xiaokai's background. This brother was 24 years old this year. Like Tang Ying, he spent most of his time living across the sea in the United States. However, Tang Ying chose to return to China to practice medicine, while he stayed in the United States to study at Harvard Business School and continue his father's business. Tang Ying was indeed a genius in the medical field, but this kid wasn't any worse than his sister. At such a young age, he was already in charge of several large companies, and even held a controlling stake in many of them. This kind of person was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Coupled with his talent, he left Qin Guang behind at the starting line of life by about 10 Wall Street. This time he was also on vacation in China. He wanted to give Tang Ying a surprise, so he came without telling her in advance. He also had the key to the house, so he opened the door directly. He didn't expect to run into the two of them. As they chatted, Tang Xiaokai gradually added various English words into his Chinese, and in the end it was all in English. Tang Ying spoke English fluently abroad, so she didn't notice the change. She habitually spoke English with Tang Xiaokai. Qin Guang heard something unexpected. Some users said that the Puss Corporation, which Tang Xiaokai controlled, had developed a special medicine for kidney failure. The effect on Asian people would weaken as the dosage of the medicine accumulated. He hoped that Tang Ying could give him a reference and make appropriate improvements to the special medicine for Asian people. Oh my God, this bastard is a major shareholder of the Puss Corporation. Tang Ying also participated in the development of the special medicine? Damn it. The old man's family contributed at least 200,000 yuan to your medical expenses. Evil capitalists, they are actually right next to me. I really want to strangle these two people to death. Walking to the parking lot, Tang Xiaokai finally spoke Chinese again. Why don't you take my car? I just borrowed a car from my buddy. He pointed to a Maserati CEO in the middle of the parking lot. Qin Guang shook his head. He planned to drive back to school after dinner. He didn't want to waste time. You guys take that car. I'll drive my own. Brother Qin Guang, what car do you want? Tang Xiaokai's eyes lit up. This cheap brother-in-law was so calm when he saw the Maserati CEO and said he wanted to drive his own car. Could it be that he was actually a relatively thrifty young master? That's not bad. This kind of person is suitable to live with my sister. Qin Guang pointed to his small broken Rena on the other side. Mine Rena. Tang Xiaokai. Then something that made Tang Xiaokai even more depressed happened. Tang Ying said, you drive your Maserati. I'll take Qin Guang's car. Oh my God. Sister. You want to live a poor life with your brother-in-law. Chapter 206. Tang Xiaokai reached out to pull Tang Ying. Sis. How can you even sit in this crappy car? At that moment Qin Guang was enraged. Isn't this face slapping a little too fierce? You're going to start a fight at the slightest disagreement. Tang Ying also looked at Tang Xiaokai strangely. She understood her brother's personality. He wasn't arrogant like those rich young masters. On the contrary, he knew how to deal with people. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been pushed to the position of the person in charge of so many companies at such a young age. What's wrong with him today? Does he really think that Qin Guang is my boyfriend? Alright, with the situation at that time, it was basically like yellow mud falling into the crotch of one's pants. Even if it wasn't that, it would still be that. But even if that's what you think, isn't your attitude a little too harsh? Fortunately, there's nothing between me and Qin Guang. If there really is that relationship, wouldn't I be pissed to death? Did you take the wrong medicine today or something? So what if I like to sit in crappy cars? Drive your Maserati and talk too much. Be careful or I'll tear your mouth off. Tang Ying pushed Tang Xiaokai's hand away, turned around and pulled Qin Guang towards Rena. Tang Xiaokai was taken aback by Tang Ying's reaction. It took him quite a while to come back to his senses before he crawled back into his car. How dare you say you're not my brother-in-law? You almost fell out with me because of him. Fine, you've already fallen out with me. Tang Xiaokai felt very wronged in his heart. I'm your biological brother. Even though you've always been fierce to me since we were young, it's mostly just a joke. I just want to help you this time. Is there a need for you to be like this? Tang Xiaokai angrily crawled into his car and took a few deep breaths. He already had an idea. He took out his phone, told Tang Ying where they were going to eat and drove off. Sitting in Qin Guang's car, Tang Ying hesitated for a moment, then said to Qin Guang, don't get mad at my brother, he wasn't like this before. I don't know what's wrong with him recently, but he dares to give me looks the moment he's back in China. I'll get him to draw his blood later to see if he's too angry. Qin Guang just chuckled. To be honest, when Tang Xiaokai said that he was riding in a crappy car, he wasn't really hurt. What really made him feel stifled was when Tang Xiaokai said, so what if I like to ride in a crappy car? You're the one with the God-tier last hit. Tang Xiaokai led the way, and it didn't take long for the 3 people and 2 cars to return to the city. When they arrived at the parking lot, the combination of the 2 cars was indeed fresh. The one leading the way was a Maserati and the one following behind was a Hyundai Rena. When they entered the parking lot one after the other, the woman guarding the entrance felt that it was both fresh and strange. The 3 of them got out of the car, but Tang Xiaokai didn't rush to the restaurant. Instead, he looked around for a while and suddenly said, there's a business office over there that's not closed yet. I've just returned to China, and I forgot to charge my phone. Come with me to charge my phone. Tang Ying and Qin Guang didn't suspect anything. Qin Guang also thought that although he was a postpaid customer, it was about time to pay his phone. Since it was the right time, he might as well pay together. When the 3 of them arrived at the business office, the people there were about to close the door and get off work. Please wait a moment, I need to pay my phone, Tang Xiaokai said loudly. The girl in the business office who was about to lock the door, raised her head and glanced at Tang Xiaokai. Although she felt that this young man was quite handsome, he was still more charming when he was off work. She could only wave her hand apologetically. Sorry, we're off work. Please use your phone to charge your phone. Tang Xiaokai smiled and gently flipped the tip of his hair. A black bank card popped out between his fingers. I want to charge my phone for 20,000 yuan. Can't I? I can almost buy a second-hand domestic car with that amount. Tang Ying instantly understood what Tang Xiaokai wanted to do. She scolded him for being childish in her heart and turned to look at Qin Guang, afraid that he would be angry. Tang Ying thought that Qin Guang was a magnanimous person after all. He wouldn't be so petty, right? She turned her head. Where's Qin Guang? You're already more than 10 meters away in the blink of an eye. Qin Guang gritted his teeth in anger. Mother ***, I can forgive you for complaining about my car just now, but I'll tolerate it since you're Tang Ying's younger brother. Mother ***, you still haven't played enough, have you? You can charge 20,000 yuan just for charging your phone, right? You're rich, you're powerful. I'm not going to serve you anymore. Goodbye. Let me tell you, if it weren't for Tang Ying, I wouldn't care if you're Tang Xiaokai or Tang Dekai. I'd beat you up until your face is covered in peach blossoms. Qin Guang, wait. Tang Ying hurriedly caught up to him and pulled him back. Don't go. It's Xiaokai's fault. I'll teach him a lesson. Don't go. Give me some face. Qin Guang tried to struggle a little, but her grip was too tight. He couldn't break free. He tried to use force, but he was afraid that he'd hurt her. All right. The old man was a magnanimous adult and wouldn't argue with a child. Qin Guang had forgotten that Tang Xiaokai was actually older than him by 3 to 4 years. Xiaokai, I'm warning you for the last time. If you continue to have this attitude, then don't come here anymore. Go back to mom and dad. I've already told you that Qin Guang and I are good friends, not boyfriend and girlfriend. You're making it difficult for me to deal with you like this. Believe it or not, I'll say it here. Tang Ying pulled Qin Guang to stand in front of Tang Xiaokai. Tang Xiaokai was about to enter the password on the POS machine when he heard Tang Ying's words. He seemed to be really angry, so he hurriedly raised his head and smiled apologetically at her. I was wrong. I was really wrong. Really? Tang Ying nodded heavily. Really? Tang Xiaokai's expression immediately changed. He turned to look at Qin Guang and bowed to him. Bro Qin Guang, it's my fault. I really thought you were my brother-in-law. I've never seen my sister in a relationship before, so I was worried that you might not really like her. That's why my reaction was a little overboard. I was actually trying to test my future brother-in-law on purpose to help my sister check on him. I just thought that even if we had a conflict because of this, if my sister really liked you, then we would become a family sooner or later. My attitude just now wasn't really directed at you, but at my future family. I'm deeply sorry for the trouble I caused you. Tang Xiaokai bowed again after he finished speaking. Please understand the complicated and selfish feelings of a little brother who has been following behind his sister's ass since he was young. On the other hand, Qin Guang was stunned by Su Tao's words. His apology was sincere and his reason was very convincing. It was indeed hard to get angry at him. Forget it, I'll just give him a way out since Tang Ying has been running errands for my parents these past few days. Well, alright, I accept your apology. But I'm still Sister Tang Ying's friend. You really pissed me off just now, so if you really want me to forgive you, help me top up my phone bill too. I'm a postpaid user, so just top up my phone bill for the first 2 months will be enough. I'm a very stingy person, you know. Qin Guang felt that this was a good way for him to step down. For a wealthy person like him, a few hundred yuan wasn't worth mentioning. He wasn't coveting that bit of money, but he just wanted to use this matter to make Qin Guang owe him a favor. Taking the initiative to owe someone a favor was actually the best way to get closer to each other. What was the underworld? The underworld was about the ways of the world. Tang Ying and Tang Xiaokai laughed too, especially Tang Xiaokai. He felt that this bro was actually quite a good person. Putting aside the fact that he was rich, he was a really interesting person. Just a small joke like this had brought everyone a lot closer in an instant. Tang Xiaokai waved his hand casually. No problem. Sis, help me check brother Qin Guang's number. I'll swipe my card again and pay for him. I didn't even know that you're a high-class postpaid customer. Sorry for not recognizing you, hee. Chapter 207. The receptionist glanced at Tang Xiaokai with a smile. Her eyes were filled with love. When she pulled out Qin Guang's bill, her smile became even more radiant. Her fingers tapped on the keyboard quickly. She was so excited that it was like she was injected with chicken blood. Tang Xiaokai was very proud and happy. He had confirmed that Qin Guang was not his future brother-in-law. The way this girl looked at him was hot and ambiguous. This is really troublesome. It seems that I have become more handsome after returning to China. How can I continue like this? After inputting the data, the receptionist passed the POS machine to Tang Xiaokai. He was really happy. How lucky was she today? She only watched half of the TV series when she got off work. She couldn't bear to leave, so she forced herself to stay for half an hour. Who would have thought that she would get such a huge sum of money? Oh my god. One was paid 20,000 yuan, and the other was paid 60,000 yuan. Added up to 80,000 yuan. I won't have to worry about my performance for the next month. The world of the rich is really scary. This guy next to me made 60,000 yuan in 2 months. How did he do it? While the receptionist was looking at Qin Guang with admiration, Tang Xiaokai had already inputted the password with a smile and put the card back into his pocket. The black gold card was specially used to show off. The more you use it, the better it is. As for the amount on the POS machine, don't joke around. A real tycoon never looks down at the numbers. Let's go. I heard that Beckham's Bistro has a new chef. He used to be Bei Shuai's family chef. He's pretty good. I'll invite you two to have a taste. Tang Xiaokai waved his hand carelessly and led the way out of the business hall. Qin Guang and Tang Ying looked at each other and smiled. Tang Xiaokai was actually quite easy to get along with under normal circumstances. Thank you, sir. Take care, sir. Thank you so much. As soon as the three of them turned around, the receptionist behind them said loudly. Tang Xiaokai shook his head again. Handsome. That's how domineering he is. When would a receptionist be so enthusiastic to a customer? He waved his hand proudly and said without turning his head, "It's rare for me to meet a receptionist with such an enthusiastic attitude. I have to be enthusiastic. Sir, you've helped me solve my performance target for several months. 80,000. The little girl beamed with joy. Dong. Tang Xiaokai, who was about to open the glass door, bumped his head into the glass door. He covered his head and turned around. What the hell? You think almond can overcome rice? He was so scared that he spoke in English. Translated into Chinese, what? Are you King kidding me? Qin Guang and Tang Ying were also stunned. They didn't know what was going on. Although they didn't lack money, that wasn't the way to spend it. Didn't I only top up 20,000? How could there be 80,000? Are you mistaken? Tang Xiaokai turned around and walked back quickly, trying hard to control his expression. He was a little angry. This little girl wanted to treat him as a rich young master who only knew how to show off. Come on, secretly give me more than 70,000 yuan? Do you think I'll be happy just because you gave me an auspicious number of 80,000? The little girl was shocked by Tang Xiaokai's behavior. She quickly grabbed the bill from the printer with trembling hands and handed it to Tang Xiaokai. It's not wrong. Your phone is topped up with 20,000 yuan, and Mr. Chen's postpaid phone bill is more than 50,000 yuan. The total here is 78,466 yuan. I thought that for someone like you, there's no difference between 78,800 yuan and 80,000 yuan, so I just said 80,000 yuan. If you don't believe me, you can check your phone. There should be a notification from the bank on it. Tang Xiaokai's back was facing Qin Guang and Tang Ying. His heart was about to explode. Big bro Qin Guang, you're borrowing a donkey from me. Your donkey is a little expensive. How good are you at talking on the phone? You spent 2 months to make 60,000 yuan. Qin Guang was also confused. Was there something wrong with the RMB measurement unit? In the past, I used to spend a lot of money on my phone. But in the past 2 months, I didn't drive as many sports cars as I used to, and my phone calls were less than half of what they used to be. Why the hell did you give me 60,000 yuan? On the other side, Tang Xiaokai had already adjusted his mood. He squeezed out a nonchalant expression and waved at the little girl. Oh, since you've made it clear, it's fine. It's fine. Sorry to trouble you. Since he had accepted Qin Guang's move and said that he would top up the phone bill for Qin Guang, he had already put on an act and it was clearly written on the bill. Hence, there was no need for him, Tang Xiaokai, to continue pestering about this matter. After all, he couldn't afford to embarrass himself. I'll learn from my mistakes. Did I really think that Prime Minister Qin Guang would be so magnanimous? My attitude before was a little too much, but this backstab is also quite hateful. Bro, your tricks are really deep. I can't guard against it. It's fine. Since it's like this, let's go straight to the restaurant. Bro Qin Guang, you're really good at making phone calls. I'm a little surprised, but it doesn't matter. Tang Xiaokai turned around and said with a smile. Qin Guang gave him a thumbs up in his heart. You've been ripped off so ruthlessly, yet your face doesn't change and your heart doesn't palpitate. You're going to admit it, but I have to clarify this matter. Hee, I'm a little busy with business, so I have a little more calls than usual. But I didn't expect it to be this much, Qin Guang said as he walked back. Tang Ying, who was beside him, rolled her eyes. You're right. Who can have more calls than an internet driver? But even if you call 24 hours a day, there's no reason for you to come up with so many phone bills. Of course, Tang Ying knew what Qin Guang wanted to ask. She quickly pulled Tang Xiaokai out, saying that she would wait for him outside. Dr. Tang's elbow was on the side of the outsider. Since Tang Xiaokai had taken the lead, Tang Ying was more willing to let Qin Guang take advantage of the situation with a clear conscience. Anyway, with her little brother's wealth, he really didn't lack this bit of money. On the other hand, Qin Guang didn't feel at ease if he didn't clarify the situation. This time Tang Xiaokai had taken the lead and forced him to admit it, but what about the next time? Tens of thousands of phone bills a month, hee. It was even more expensive than the medical fees of Puss Corporation. I'm sorry, shop assistant, but I'm a little confused. Since Tang Xiaokai had already pretended to be a rich young master, Qin Guang couldn't fall behind. With a carefree smile on his face, he smiled at the shop assistant in a very gentlemanly manner. He wanted to take a look at his bill. Of course, he was carefree. After all, the money wasn't coming out of his own pocket. And it seemed that Tang Xiaokai didn't intend to renege on the bill. Of course, he had to take advantage of this situation with a clear conscience. It was fine if it was a little less, but it was 60,000 yuan. If the telecommunications company asked him to pay this amount, he would definitely smash the business office. He was also very puzzled. Although he was paying postpaid, the telecommunications company should have informed him about such an explosive consumption of phone bills. Why hadn't there been any movement at all? In the end, when he checked, he found out that this month, 10086 had sent him at least 100 text messages reminding him of the phone bill. The customer service staff had even called him at least 3 times, but each time, it was Qin Guang's secretary who picked up the call. The secretary said in a voice that was sweeter than the 10,080 SIX's customer service staff, "Our Xiao already knows. Please don't call and disturb Xiao anymore. Xiao is very busy. It's only tens of thousands of yuan, it's just a drizzle. Xiao earns hundreds of thousands of yuan every minute, so he doesn't mind." Listening to the recording of the call that the mobile girl had pulled out for him through overtime, Qin Guang had goosebumps all over his body. At that time, the customer service staff of 10,086 must have felt completely defeated. Damn, this tone sounds so familiar. Li. Chapter 208. I don't know what method this woman used, but she blocked all the messages I received from 10086. She even pretended to be a secretary to answer the phone. She was so good at acting that I almost thought I really had a secretary. I was wondering why there wasn't any movement from you for so long. You're not lonely anymore and you're not in a hurry to chat with me. I really thought you were working so hard to prepare for the punishment realm of the realm of life, but in the end, you burned through 200 gigabytes of data in a month. Just how good are you at making things? President Chen's heart ached and he began to panic. Clutching the cup in his hand tightly, and looking at the phone in his other hand that was faintly heating up, Qin Guang completely understood. She really didn't charge for it. With the current speed of the 4G network, if someone watched videos all the time, it was entirely possible for them to have that much data in a month. After trying to get an unlimited data card to no avail, Qin Guang quietly switched off his phone and walked out of the office. Tang Ying asked with concern, "Did you ask clearly, did they charge for it? If there's a problem, you still can't return the money." Tang Xiaokai, on the other hand, waved his hand domineeringly. "Sis, don't think too much. I've seen the bill just now, there's no problem. Don't dawdle on this matter, it's not a big deal. Isn't it normal for me to pay tens of thousands a month? International calls are very expensive." Tang Ying rolled her eyes, thinking, that's an international call, how can Qin Guang's compare to yours? Qin Guang looked at Tang Xiaokai with embarrassment. "There's no problem with the phone bill, I didn't expect it to be so much, I'm really sorry. Otherwise, I'll return the money to you." As he spoke, he pretended to take out his wallet, but Tang Xiaokai immediately stopped him. "Don't. Bro Qin Guang, if you return the money to me, we can't be friends anymore. Even if you're my sister's friend, I still won't acknowledge you, isn't that embarrassing me?" How can I do that? But money is easy to come by, friends are hard to find, I'll acknowledge you as my friend. Qin Guang decisively put away his supernatural power. Tang Ying, who knew his background, could only roll her eyes at his antics. Why didn't she realize how shameless this guy was before? This Western restaurant named Beckham's Bistro did have a long history. If translated into Chinese, it would be Beckham's Bistro. It was indeed the catering industry under the retired football star Beckham. It had recently opened branches in the 5 capitals. Tang Xiaokai was also well informed. As soon as he returned to the country, he first inquired about the food and drinks. Tang Xiaokai and Tang Ying hadn't seen each other for a long time, so they had a lot to talk about. Qin Guang, on the other hand, was sitting at the side absent-mindedly. His mind was still full of worries about the traffic flow. Clearly, he couldn't stop Liuli from using her phone to surf the internet. Given that woman's personality, there was no point in trying to reason with her. As for turning off his phone, his phone had already turned on by itself while he was upstairs. Just now, Qin Guang also tried to turn off the traffic, but it was useless. That woman was simply a stubborn virus. This feeling was like knowing that a mosquito was sucking your blood, but you couldn't do anything about it. It was itchy and painful at the same time. Xiaokai and I have ordered our own food. What do you want to eat? Can I help you? At that moment, Tang Ying, who was sitting next to him, bumped his shoulder with his hand. Tang Xiaokai, who was sitting opposite him, looked at Qin Guang with a playful gaze. He wanted to know how he would react. Logically speaking, he had just returned from overseas and should have gone to a Chinese restaurant. He decided to come here because he saw Qin Guang's Rena and felt that this guy was a bit of a loser. Therefore, he deliberately decided to come here to eat Western food and embarrass this guy a little. Although they had talked things out and their relationship had eased, Tang Xiaokai still felt a little mischievous and expectant at this moment. To his surprise, Qin Guang shook his head and casually took the menu. He ordered the Western food that he often ate on the An Royal and then handed the menu to the waiter. Tang Ying already knew that Qin Guang's English was very good, so she wasn't surprised. Instead, Tang Xiaokai was shocked. He looked at Qin Guang with a slightly surprised expression, thinking that this guy was hiding his strength. When the dishes were served one after another, Qin Guang once again revealed his extremely skilled knife and fork skills, cutting the steak on his plate like a piece of art. This time not only Tang Xiaokai, but even Tang Ying couldn't help but ask him in surprise, "I didn't know that you could adapt to Western food? Do you eat it often?" Qin Guang was stunned. He knew that he had accidentally let the cat out of the bag. How could he possibly tell them that he had been eating Western food in his own cup for 20 years? He just chuckled and said, "Not often, but I knew that today's scene would happen. That's why I learned this from the movies. I'm just waiting for this opportunity to show it off." Tang Ying and Tang Xiaokai were amused by him. "Brother Qin Guang, you're such an interesting person." Tang Xiaokai blinked. "I changed my mind. If my sister really likes you, I don't mind that my future brother-in-law is younger than me." "Shut up." Tang Ying stepped on Tang Xiaokai's foot under the table. Qin Guang only smiled. He picked up his cup and took a sip of water. In his heart he began to howl, "Liuli, come out. Let's talk this over, okay?" Finally, Liuli finally responded to him after being called for so many times. That fairy-like figure appeared in his mind, but her whole body was wrapped in a thick white mist. Obviously, her lustrous feather dress had not recovered. This woman really worked hard. In order to go online and deal with the realm of life, she really didn't save any divine power for herself. It was all a waste. "What? I'm very busy. If you have something to say, spit it out," Liuli said impatiently. Finally, she was called out. Qin Guang hurriedly said, "I just went to pay the phone bill. You've spent more than 60,000 yuan on my phone bill this month. When I'm outside, can you be a little more frugal and wait for me to go back to the dormitory and have Wi-Fi to watch the video?" Liuli curled her lips. "Towei. Then what? You're not convinced? Who is this empress? I'm in charge of the glass divine nation. The lives and deaths of trillions of gods are at this empress's whim. Even going online to watch unexpectedly requires a little brat's approval? Friend, to make a horse run fast you have to feed it grass. I can't let you take advantage of the heavenly holy grail for free, right? This empress has worked so hard to help you. A small request like going online is not too much, right? Is tens of thousands a lot? Can't you earn it? Faster see. This woman's words are so reasonable. I'm King speechless." Liuli opened her mouth again. Don't bother me if there's nothing important. I have to prepare the realm of life and go online at the same time. It's very busy. I don't go online for myself. I can only help you more effectively if I have a deeper understanding of your world. Goodbye. After saying that, she didn't move again. Qin Guang gritted his teeth. The negotiation had failed completely. He knew that she was using her official position for personal gain, but there was nothing he could do. Did you learn about this world through unexpected? You understand Wang Dachu's world, right? Chapter 209. While Qin Guang and the glazed deity emperor were negotiating in their hearts, there was an unforeseen event outside. An acquaintance of Tang Xiaokai happened to come to the restaurant and went straight to where the three of them were sitting. Brother Xiaokai, why are you here to eat too? What a coincidence. Is it convenient for me to borrow your car? Why don't I give you a more business-looking car? Tang Xiaokai smiled at the person. Didn't you tell me about this place? Zhongbai, let me introduce you. You know my sister Tang Ying, and this is my sister's friend, Brother Qin Guang. Qin Guang was actually younger than Tang Xiaokai, but because of Tang Ying, Tang Xiaokai subconsciously used the word brother when he introduced Qin Guang. The person who came was Tang Xiaokai's childhood friend, the person who lent him the Maserati, Zhongbai. When Zhongbai came over, Qin Guang's back was facing him and Qin Guang was negotiating with Liuli in his mind, so he didn't pay attention to the situation outside. Otherwise he would have known who Zhongbai was the moment he heard his voice. Zhongbai turned to look in the direction Tang Xiaokai was pointing at and he exclaimed, Brother Qin Guang. Why are you here too? Faster see. Qin Guang had just come back to his senses when he looked up to see Zhongbai's big face right in front of him. It was so close that it looked like Zhongbai was going to kiss him. He subconsciously leaned back and shouted again, Zhongbai, why the f*** are you getting so close to me? Are you pretending to be a ghost to scare me? Zhongbai felt wronged. Aren't I happy to see you here? Brother, I'm so sad to see you like this. Tang Xiaokai was surprised. You two know each other? Friends? Zhongbai chuckled, then turned to greet the others and let them eat by themselves. He sat down next to Tang Xiaokai intending to order. Brother Xiaokai, let me tell you, Brother Qin Guang and I are more than just friends. He's also... Cough, cough, cough. Qin Guang coughed violently. Of course he knew what Zhongbai wanted to say, but he didn't want Tang Ying to know that he taught people to race. If Tang Ying's mouth spread to his father's ears, he'd be waiting to be beaten to the ground. Zhongbai understood. Although he didn't know why he didn't want to say it, he couldn't go against Brother Racing God's wishes. He just laughed it off and said, He's also my savior. He helped me a lot. Our relationship is solid. Zhongbai and Xiaokai knew each other. He's Guang. He's my savior and helped me a lot, so we have a good relationship. At such a young age, Tang Xiaokai owned several companies abroad. Coupled with Tang Ying's duplex apartment, the siblings' family background was certainly not simple. They were at least at the same level as Zhongbai's family. Wujing City's rich peoples know each other's family. As the four of them ate and chatted, Qin Guang came to know more about it. It turned out that Zhongbai and Tang Xiaokai were childhood friends who had been playing together since they were a few years old and had been hanging out with each other. However, Tang Xiaokai went abroad when he was 11 years old. Now Tang Xiaokai had become a well-known business genius abroad, but Zhongbai still led a group of buddies to support his racing business. Halfway through the meal, Tang Xiaokai tried to persuade Zhongbai. I heard that you guys are still racing. When are you going to get rid of that stupid habit? I'm always worried that something will happen. We're not young anymore. Sooner or later you'll be ready to take over. Why don't you get ready? Glancing at Qin Guang with a guilty conscience, Zhongbai explained, Big brother Xiaokai, you don't understand. That feeling of racing to the limit is akin to taking drugs. We're addicted to racing and that's why I'm here. Of course it won't last for 2 years. In a while my dad is going to let me go to Gokyo University to try to get an MBA. After I finish I'll be doing the same thing as you. You have to teach me more. You're good at it. When Qin Guang heard that, he felt his balls shattering. Tang Xiaokai was trying to ruin his business. If Zhongbai stopped racing and became an MBA, then his training class would be useless. Tang Xiaokai was about to say something when his phone suddenly rang. He smiled and said, I've been idle for almost an hour and I haven't received any work calls. I'm not used to it. He didn't avoid them and answered the call. After chatting for a while, his brows furrowed and relaxed. Qin Guang listened attentively. Tang Xiaokai's business abroad was big and varied. Apart from the pharmaceutical company Puss Corporation, he was also involved in many other fields. He was just talking about an environmental protection company. It sounded like the company had encountered difficulties in the research and development of a new process, and his subordinates were reporting the situation to him. High concentration, high pH and toxic extraction wastewater treatment process? It sounded sharp. Even the experts and teachers in the college couldn't handle it, right? Qin Guang also majored in environmental science, but he's only a third-year student. On the other hand, the other party was the CEO of a listed environmental protection company with countless people under his name. Hence, it wasn't his turn to act cool in this field. Hence he kept his silence. After everyone had eaten, Qin Guang planned to go back to school. Tang Ying and Tang Xiaokai were going back to Guanghua Street, and Zhong Bai followed Qin Guang. Brother Qin Guang, many people have asked me again. Everyone is waiting for you to open the second training class. When will you be free? Zhong Bai said while rubbing his hands excitedly. It was very difficult for others to learn the second class after learning the first one. Only he could learn it again and again. Of course he was happy. Qin Guang thought for a moment and calculated that Patek Philippe was not very short of money. He also had exams recently, so he didn't have the energy to do training classes. Anyway, money and people were there and he could earn it at any time. So he waved his hand and said, I have final exams recently and there are a lot of things to do at home. Let's talk about it during the summer. Is that so? Zhong Bai was a little disappointed, but he immediately became excited again. Brother Qin Guang, 2 days ago Wang Qing told me that he ran into you in Phoenix Spring Mountain. To be honest, Wang Qing really does have some ability. He's more talented than me. Yesterday he raced to an average speed of 105 kilometers per hour. He thought about it. When he can use that GTR to run to 100 kilometers per hour, he will immediately go to Hong Kong to show off. I really envy his talent. What I said to Brother Xiaokai just now was true. We won't be able to race for a few years. If one of us can make a name for ourselves in the mid-mountain racetrack, it won't be in vain for so many years. As soon as Zhong Bai mentioned Wang Qing, Qin Guang frowned. He felt that the kid was too crazy and waved his hand impatiently. Didn't he tell you that I persuaded him? Zhong Bai shook his head. He did. But you also know that we can't persuade him. Besides, before we met you, we really thought that our level would be like this for the rest of our lives. After seeing you race, we know what real racing is. You can't open the door to a new world for us with your own hands and expect to pull us back, can you? Chapter 210. Qin Guang fell into silence before he continued. Anyways, tell him to pay attention to his safety and pay attention to his condition. I know that he's trying to make breakthroughs, but racing also requires condition. He can't challenge his limits when he's already at his limit. Zhong Bai didn't think much of it and just replied, all right, I got it. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. He ran off after saying that. He was a little afraid of Qin Guang's lecture. Looking at Zhong Bai's excited back view, Qin Guang sighed slightly. At that moment he felt a little regretful. By the time Qin Guang returned to his dormitory, it was already 10 o'clock at night. He tossed his phone aside and went to bed. Just as he was about to put a barely satisfactory end to this unlucky day, Tang Ying's message came. Qin Guang glanced at it and was so shocked that he didn't even have the courage to reply. This great doctor was actually still thinking about that matter. She wrote in the message, "You're still young. Don't give up on treatment. It's not a big problem if it's short. I'll help you. Thank you, Dr. Tang." What a vengeful spirit. There was no end to it. Qin Guang really wanted to curse at that moment, but in the end he could only force out one sentence. Hunting in the wilderness. He didn't dare to reply. After all, she was his mother's doctor. If he ignored her, she could do whatever she wanted. Holding his phone, he thought of something else. It seemed like he couldn't stop Lioli from going online anymore. Wouldn't he really have to bear tens of thousands of yuan in phone bills every month in the future? Thinking of this, he felt an inexplicable sadness. The 10,086 yuan was unreasonable. Why couldn't 4G give him an unlimited monthly data usage card? Even if it cost 10,000 yuan a month, he would get it. Based on the current situation, he would have to bear tens of thousands of yuan in phone bills every month. It was a little crazy. No, he had to think of a way later. No matter what, he had to find some connections to get an internal card. Otherwise it would be too much. Here came the problem. To get such a card, one had to at least have a solid relationship with a telecommunications company and a position with real power. I don't know such a person. Forget it, there will always be a way out. I throw away my phone and sleep. Qin Guang did not expect that the thing he had been worried about would happen so quickly and so violently. It was like a boulder had descended from the sky and fiercely smashed onto his head, causing his head to bleed, and he was in unbearable pain. He only found out about it at noon the next day. No one informed him, but a few people in his class bragged about a piece of news that had nothing to do with them. These people treated this as an interesting topic of conversation, but it made Qin Guang jump out of his chair. He didn't even have time to put away the reference books and exercises. He rushed out of the study room in a daze. The title of the news was "Luxury Cars Rushing Off the Cliff, Top Supercars Burned." At that time, Bai Nyangzi put the phone in front of Qin Guang and said with a smile, "Brother Guang, look at these people. If they are rich, then so be it. Why did they race when they have nothing to do? Isn't this retribution?" Qin Guang turned his head and looked. In the photo there was almost only an empty frame left. It was a jeeter. Although he couldn't recognize the license plate number at all, there was a terrible voice in Qin Guang's heart, telling him that this was Wang Qing's jeeter. Sure enough, the first paragraph of the following news said, "At about 9 o'clock last night, there was a tragic car accident in Fengquan Mountain. A white Nissan jeeter lost control and rushed down Fengquan Mountain. After a violent explosion, it was burned. According to the investigation by the traffic department, there was only one driver in the car at the time of the accident. There was no suspicion of drunk driving, but it was obvious that he was speeding. When the reporter left Wujing City Hospital, the driver was still in emergency and his life was not out of danger." Something had happened to Wang Qing. Qin Guang couldn't describe his mood when he rushed to Wujing City Hospital. When he appeared outside the emergency room, Wang Qing still hadn't come out. A large group of people gathered outside, some of whom he knew were Zhong Bai and the others. Most of the people he didn't know were probably Wang Qing's family. The accident had happened last night. Until now, these people were still standing or sitting waiting here. Needless to say, they were exhausted. Although there were no heart-wrenching cries, the haze that filled the air was even thicker. From time to time someone would sob softly, the sound of his nose twitching was so ear-piercing. The emergency room's indicator light was still dazzling. The people coming and going in the hospital didn't seem to exist in Qin Guang's eyes. The only thing reflected in his eyes was the tightly shut emergency room door, which was like a black hole. Logically speaking, Qin Guang and Wang Qing weren't close at all. They had only met each other twice. They wanted to learn how to race, so he took their money and taught them how to race. At most, they had a teacher-student relationship of employment. But what did that count for? Which driving school master would feel heartache because one of his countless students died in a car accident that he didn't know well with? "You've graduated from my school, so you have nothing to do with me. I have no reason or obligation to care about your life or death, and I have no reason to bear any legal responsibility for your accident." Qin Guang had been trying to convince himself with these words for a long time, but he found that he couldn't do it. It was useless. The bursts of self-blame in Wang Qing's bright eyes, which were filled with fanaticism, kept echoing in his mind. He wasn't a driving school master, and what he taught was not ordinary driving skills, but the means of racing. If he hadn't shown Wang Qing the godly racing skills that ordinary people couldn't do, how could he have risked his life to challenge the limits that he couldn't even touch? How could he have lost control of the car and run down the cliff? Qin Guang had never claimed to be a saint, but at this moment he couldn't help but put the blame on himself. It was like a dagger. Every time it was pushed in, the blood in the heart would flow out 3 times more. As Qin Guang walked forward, Zhong Bai, who was resting on a chair with his hands supporting his head, happened to look up. When he saw Qin Guang, his expression changed slightly, and he quickly got up and walked over to Qin Guang. Qin Guang looked at Zhong Bai, who had 2 huge dark circles under his eyes. Obviously he hadn't slept since last night. Qin Guang opened his mouth and was about to ask Zhong Bai what was going on. However, Zhong Bai suddenly grabbed his shoulder and pushed him back, saying in a low voice, "Why are you here?" Qin Guang was pushed back by Zhong Bai, but he broke free of his hand. "Why can't I be here? Why didn't you tell me? After something like this happened, do you think I can act as if nothing happened?" The movement of the two slightly attracted the people near the resuscitation room. Zhou Bai didn't dare to turn his head, only gritting his teeth and saying, "Brother Qinguang, don't worry. Let's go over there and talk. I can't talk to you here. Really, believe me. If Wang Qing's family knows that you're the god of racing, they'll tear you apart. If I want to help you, I can only let my Zhong family and his Wang family completely fall out." Chapter 211. Qinguang's face darkened. He really hadn't thought of what Zhong Bai said. He suddenly lost his strength and was pushed to the far corner by Zhong Bai like a walking corpse. "Brother Qinguang, I know you're upset. I didn't inform you because I was afraid you'd blame yourself. It's really meaningless to look into who's right and who's wrong. It's really not your fault." He wanted to risk his life. Last night his fastest time was 109 meters. Everyone saw that he was very tired and advised him to stop running, but he refused to listen. He said that his hand was completely warm and insisted on running one last time. In a spurt of energy he broke 110 meters. Lu Fei and the others couldn't persuade him. At that time he had been racing for 6 hours straight. As Zhong Bai spoke, he shook Qinguang's shoulder in an attempt to wake the latter up. Seeing that Qinguang didn't move, Zhong Bai said again, "It's not just you. In fact, I'm also at fault. You said that to me yesterday, but I didn't care at all. They were practicing on Phoenix Spring Mountain and I didn't go. If I had listened to you and stopped Wang Qing, perhaps he wouldn't have made that last trip. If you want to blame someone, shouldn't it be me?" Qinguang gradually recovered his spirit. He looked up at Zhong Bai and asked, "Do you really think I'm not at fault?" Zhong Bai was silent. He knew that Qinguang had reached a dead end and couldn't be persuaded. Zhong Bai gritted his teeth and decided to say what he was really worried about. "I can only say this to you. Do you think I can let you go and take the blame for it on me? Do you know who Wang Qing's father is?" "Who is it?" "Wang Guixiong. I don't know if you've heard of this name. I can only tell you that in Wujing City, as long as you see a foot massage center or a men's spa, there is almost no one that the Wang family doesn't own. Now their whole family is sad and angry. If they know that you're the god who taught Wang Qing how to drive, even if I bite the bullet and want to protect you, I may not be able to protect you. They won't be able to figure out the reason behind it and will only vent all their wrongs on you." As Zhong Bai spoke, he squeezed Qinguang's shoulder hard. He was really afraid of this situation. Qinguang woke up slowly and shook his head with a bitter smile. You're right. Thank you. Okay, I'll go back first. I've been here for too long. If they ask me later, I'll just explain to them that you're a friend who came to help me deliver something. Don't get involved in this anymore. Wang Qing hasn't come out of the resuscitation room yet, but that doesn't mean there's no hope at all. Brother Qinguang, you should go back first." After Zhong Bai finished speaking, he did not dare to delay any longer. He quickly turned around and walked toward the resuscitation room. Qinguang stood in the corner and looked at Zhong Bai's back. He was silent for a long time, but he did not leave. Instead, he turned around and sat on the other side of the long corridor of the hospital building. He was at least 50 to 60 meters away from Zhong Bai as he looked in his direction. He curled up his body and hid himself deep in the crowd. He only looked at the tightly shut doors of the resuscitation room with a pair of complicated eyes. After some time, the crowd on the other side became noisy again. The doors of the resuscitation room were finally opened. Qinguang did not get up. He continued to watch quietly. A group of exhausted people in white coats filed out from inside, but the hospital bed was nowhere to be seen. Wang Qing's family, Zhong Bai, and the others surrounded one of the people in white coats. They asked a lot of questions and chatted a lot. The doctor patiently explained everything to everyone. The crowd did not show any signs of ecstasy, but they did not become any more gloomy either. They just continued to look in the direction of the resuscitation room with worried eyes. The doctor, who was surrounded by the crowd, finally cupped his hands apologetically to everyone. Then he walked in Qinguang's direction. She took 2 steps and her body seemed to be a little unsteady. She staggered a little, but she immediately stood up straight with the help of the handrail. She lifted the hat that was tightly wrapped around her head, revealing her long hair. She swung it slightly. She pulled off her mask as she walked. She stood on the spot and panted heavily for a long time before she finally walked forward again. Qinguang looked at this person from afar. His eyes lit up. It was Tang Ying. "Qinguang, what are you doing here?" When Tang Ying walked over, Qin Guang was the first to speak. Qin Guang stood up and looked in the direction of the resuscitation room. He did not answer her. You just came out of the resuscitation room, right? Tang Ying nodded. Yeah. Let's talk as we walk. I haven't slept since I was called here at 4 o'clock in the morning. I entered the operating theater at 6 o'clock, and I've been performing surgeries for more than 8 hours. I'm exhausted. Let's go eat first. Qin Guang knew that he couldn't go there, so there was no point in staying here. He took the initiative to support Tang Ying's arm. Let me help you. You look like you were going to collapse. Tang Ying did not think that his action was rude. She let him support her. After taking 2 steps, she said with some emotion, So what if I'm a little tired? I've met Wang Qing before. He was in the same class as me in elementary school. God really makes fools of people. How are his injuries? The car is a good one and he's wearing a seatbelt. God has mercy on him. There are no obvious fractures. However, his head and abdomen seem to have suffered a severe impact, which led to intracranial hemorrhage and abdominal hemorrhage. His willpower is strong enough to climb out of the car on his own. That's why he didn't burn to death on the spot. From the start of the rescue last night until I took over, the director and a few other experts were in charge of the intracranial surgery and the abdominal surgery. I was in charge of the abdominal surgery. How should I put it? The surgery was basically a success. So far he's alive. Qin Guang was overjoyed. That's great. Tang Ying looked at Qin Guang with a slightly strange look. She didn't understand why Qin Guang was so happy, but she said, But he's only alive. He's still in the observation period. He's not completely out of danger yet. In addition, his cranial nerves and brain tissue structure have been oppressed by the blood for too long. Seems to have some damage. I don't know if he'll wake up. Maybe a few days, maybe a few years, or maybe forever. This really depends on God's will. The human brain is too complicated. Even with the current medical technology, there's not much we can do about it. Qin Guang's heart sank again. What if he doesn't wake up? Tang Ying sighed. If he wakes up, there's a good chance he'll make a full recovery. If he doesn't wake up, I'm afraid he'll basically be in a vegetative state. I heard that he was racing with some god. That's why he risked his life and got into this accident. I really don't know who that god is. This is terrible. How can he teach people how to race? Bang. Qin Guang let go of Tang Ying's hand. He turned around and punched the pale wall of the hospital stairwell, making a loud noise. His body bent down, his head drooped, and his shoulders loosened slightly. Chapter 212. Tang Ying was shocked by his actions. She held his back from the side and asked loudly, What's wrong with you? Qin Guang turned to look at Tang Ying. That racing god was me. Then, ignoring Tang Ying's reaction, he slowly squatted down with his hands on his head. He felt cold all over and said in a trembling voice, I really didn't want this to happen. It's all my fault. If I wasn't greedy for the 100,000 yuan I could earn that day, I wouldn't have thought of teaching them how to race. I knew they wouldn't be able to learn, but I really didn't expect Wang Qing to work so hard. Tang Ying was stunned for a long time. She looked down at Qin Guang, who was squatting on the ground with his hands on his head. Her heart was filled with complicated feelings. She finally understood why Qin Guang was here today. He was usually so cheerful, but now he looked so abnormal. If he was the racing god, then things would be easy to explain. Admittedly, Tang Ying was blaming the god of war, but if that person was Qin Guang, then it's not like she couldn't understand. As the attending doctor for Qin Guang's mother, Tang Ying knew very well how much financial pressure he and his father faced. Teaching people to race could earn 100,000 yuan a day. For Qin Guang, who was born into an ordinary family and faced great pressure, it was an irresistible temptation. Tang Ying didn't need Qin Guang to explain anything. She completely understood his difficulties. Tang Ying, who often sat in Qin Guang's car, knew that he didn't like racing at all. On the contrary, he abided by the traffic rules and didn't even race for yellow lights. Ignoring the strange looks from passers-by, Tang Ying squatted down next to Qin Guang. She stretched out her right hand and hugged his shoulder tightly. She whispered in his ear, I didn't know what happened just now. I'm sorry, I don't really blame you. Maybe you really are at fault, but I know you have your own difficulties. You don't have any bad intentions. It's just a coincidence that you ended up like this. Life was like this. There were always many things that went beyond one's control. It's not like there's no hope for Wang Qing now. The Wangs will do everything they can to save him. Since it's already happened, there's no point in being sad. Go to my dorm and rest. Seeing that Qin Guang's emotions weren't stable, Tang Ying didn't head out for a meal. Instead, she brought Qin Guang back to her dorm room and told him to rest and sort out his thoughts. As for Tang Ying, she sat in the dorm room for a while before getting her assistant to buy her a bento. After eating it, she fell asleep on the other bed. Lying on Tang Ying's dormitory in the hospital, Qin Guang's mind was in a mess. In his daze, he gradually fell asleep, and when he opened his eyes again, it was already 5 p.m. When he turned, he saw that Tang Ying was still lying on the top he didn't have with her. She Guang. Qin Guang turned his head again. He looked at the sun outside. It was already halfway down. He couldn't bear to blink when the dazzling sunlight shone into his eyes. Qin Guang knew that he didn't have much time or right to be sad. His mother's kidney transplant would be in 9 days. He was like a clay bodhisattva crossing the river. He couldn't even protect himself. What right did he have to be depressed about other people's affairs? He still had a lot of expenses, although he didn't have to worry about 2 million yuan with Patek Philippe. The money would run out sooner or later if he didn't think of something. Today was the only day left for him to suffer. Thinking this way might seem too heartless and cold-blooded. But regarding Wang Qing, Qin Guang knew that there was nothing he could do. He couldn't even go over to show his concern. He had to be careful about Wang Qing's family. He got out of bed, took out the heavenly holy grail from his bag and took a sip of the bitter cold tea. He sighed in his heart. There is such a thing as destiny in this world. No, there must be destiny. The bell of destiny is in my cup. Then if God is watching, I, Qin Guang, the owner of the heavenly holy grail, the savior of the emperor of the Azure. I'm praying right here. Heavens, please give me face and let Wang Qing wake up, okay? Just take it that I, Qin Guang, owe you a favor. How about that? After thinking about that, he shook his head again. He felt ridiculous. Was he possessed? Suddenly, the door of Tang Ying's dorm was pushed open. A young nurse rushed in and shouted, Dr. Tang, Dr. Tang. Patient Wang Qing has woken up. Qin Guang's hand, which was holding the heavenly holy grail, suddenly stopped. He was dumbfounded. Tang Ying abruptly straightened up from the bed like a spring. She wanted to jump off the bed, but her body was tripped by the railing in midair. She was about to fall from the upper berth. Qin Guang reacted quickly. He threw the cup away, got up and opened his arms to catch Tang Ying. The two of them hugged each other, but their minds were occupied with Wang Qing's matter, so they didn't think too much about it. Tang Ying steadied herself. She quickly hid the blush on her face and followed the nurse outside. Let's go take a look. It's a miracle. Since the accident last night, Wang Qing had been on the brink of death several times. But he had actually woken up after being in a coma for 20 hours. Qin Guang followed behind Tang Ying. He was also overwhelmed with emotions. From time to time he would put his hand into his bag and caress the heavenly holy grail. His mind was in a daze. Could it be that my prayers had worked? Was the heavenly holy grail really that magical? Right at this moment, Liuli's voice suddenly rang in his mind. You're narcissistic. Yes, the heavenly holy grail can help you with this kind of thing. But you haven't even repaid the debt of the power of destiny the first time, and you're already thinking of a second time? Moreover, I've already said it. The price of a second time isn't something you can bear. This matter has nothing to do with me or the heavenly holy grail. It's just that your little apprentice has a good life. He should wake up. Qin Guang grinned. Although he was scolded by Liuli, he was still happy. The feeling of rising and falling in the blink of an eye, and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel was really great. It didn't matter whether it was his credit or not. What was important was that the person was fine. When Qin Guang arrived outside the ICU, the crowd was already in a state of joy. However, everyone was forcefully suppressing the ecstasy in their hearts, afraid that their voices would disturb Wang Qing in the ward. Tang Ying had already rushed into the ICU. Although she was only the chief surgeon who had been transferred here temporarily, she could be the first to arrive after the patient woke up. This meant that she could give the most valuable suggestions and requests for the follow-up treatment. Qin Guang paused for a moment. He looked at Wang Qing's family and hesitated for a moment. Then he quickened his pace and walked over. He had made a decision. There were some things that he couldn't say to Wang Qing's family. Chapter 213. Uncle Wang, didn't I tell you? Wang Qing is blessed by the heavens. He'll be fine, he'll definitely be fine. The doctor just said that he didn't lose his memory. Based on the current situation, he'll definitely make a full recovery. Zhou Bai forcefully suppressed his excitement as he spoke to a middle-aged man in front of him who was also grinning. This middle-aged man was Wang Qing's father, Wang Wuxia. He patted Zhou Bai's shoulder and wanted to scold him at first, but then sighed. You guys, if you hadn't been there yesterday, I would definitely have beaten you up. I'm definitely going to beat you up first. Sai, the heavens are really protecting me. Qin Guang stood beside the two of them and patted Zhou Bai first, asking, Is this Wang Qing's father? Zhou Bai turned his head and was shocked to see Qin Guang suddenly standing beside him. Brother Qin Guang. How did you get here? This is indeed Uncle Wang. Wang Qing had dominated Wujing City and even Dechuan Province for many years, and was still regarded as a formidable character by the people of the underworld. With his sharp eyes, he could tell that there was something wrong with Qin Guang and Zhou Bai with just one look. Qin Guang stopped talking to Zhou Bai and turned his head abruptly to look at Wang Qing. Then he bowed down and said, I'm sorry, Uncle Wang. I'm Qin Guang. I'm the racing god who taught Wang Qing how to race. Once again, I'm sorry. Following Qin Guang's loud words, Wang Qing's family members who had been chattering excitedly around them as well as the others, were all dumbfounded for a moment. Their attention was all drawn to this side. Wang Guxiong's face, which had been full of joy a moment ago, suddenly darkened as he stared coldly at Qin Guang. Zhou Bai's heart was in a mess as he secretly poked Qin Guang's waist with all his might. Then he looked up and hurriedly said to Wang Guxiong, Uncle Wang, brother Qin Guang, he's not like that. Wang Guxiong waved his hand. Zhou Bai, you don't have to explain for this kid named Qin Guang. He came here once at noon. At that time you called him away, so I wasn't in the mood to ask. But now that he has come here again and is standing in front of me, he must have made a decision in his heart, right? You're that bastard. You scoundrel who taught Wang Qing to race. I'll beat you to death. I'm not qualified to be Wang Qing's aunt. At this moment, a middle-aged woman suddenly pounced on Qin Guang. He calmed down. Auntie. Seeing that things were about to get out of hand, Zhou Bai was also quite flustered. He quickly winked at the other brothers behind him, asking them to think of a way to stop them. Shaolin, don't be impulsive. Let me have a good chat with this little brother Qin Guang. Wang Guxiong spoke again. Although his voice was not loud, it carried an irresistible authority. The Wang family members behind him, who were about to lose control of their emotions, immediately calmed down. Qin Guang slowly raised his head and looked straight into Wang Guxiong's eyes. I apologize to all of you again. I'm deeply sorry that I've caused all of you such pain because of me. Actually, I wanted to apologize before, but I really couldn't muster the courage. It was only now that Wang Qing has finally woken up that I dare to come see all of you. I don't expect to receive your forgiveness, I just want to be at ease. Wang Guxiong was not in a hurry to express his stance again. Instead, he quietly looked at Qin Guang. The scene suddenly became so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Even the air seemed to have frozen. Qin Guang could feel the mental pressure Wang Guxiong was trying to exert on him. But now that Wang Qing had woken up and he had apologized in front of him, there was nothing shameful about him anymore. If Wang Guxiong really wanted to take revenge on him because of this, he would just have to deal with it as it came. Of course, with Zhou Bai mediating, Wang Qing had woken up and Tang Ying, who had saved Wang Qing, was also his friend. Things wouldn't develop to the most difficult stage. Qin Guang had absolute confidence in this. Sure enough, Wang Guxiong's expression gradually eased when he saw that the pressure was ineffective. He looked deeply at Qin Guang again. Kid, if it wasn't for the fact that my son was injured, I would have to say that I really admire you. I'm afraid that Zhou Bai has already told you about me, Wang Guxiong's situation, but you still dared to come over. You're more courageous than others and dare to take responsibility for what you've done. Thank you for your praise, Uncle Wang. I'm really ashamed. Wang Guxiong suddenly attacked, but this time, it was a ruthless punch aimed at Qin Guang. Qin Guang subconsciously raised his hand, and the two fists and palms collided. Qin Guang took 2 steps back, his palms slightly numb. As a fierce and ambitious person, Wang Guxiong actually had real skills in his fists and palms. I'll let this matter rest after I hit you. I, Wang Guxiong, am not an unprincipled person and I can't blame everything on you. I understand my son's temperament. In fact, he told me that you tried to persuade him but he didn't listen. This is the first reason why I don't want to pursue this matter with you. The second reason is that you were willing to come here personally to apologize. I have a higher opinion of you. You're a person of character. Of course, if you hide and don't come, it won't be hard for me to find you. Zhong Bai, do you think there's anyone in Dechuan province that I can't find even if I want to? Wang Guxiong's last sentence was for Zhong Bai to hear. Hearing this, Zhong Bai scratched his head in embarrassment. This nephew is stupid. Wang Guxiong impatiently waved his hand. I can also see that you have a good relationship with Qin Guang. My son is also defending him between the lines. Speaking of which, it's also shameful. This kid has actually been asking the daughter of the Liu family to help him keep a will. Last night, the daughter of the Liu family didn't come over, but just now she was the one who sent me the text message of that bastard Wang Qing's will. I don't even know what kind of bewitching potion he used on you, but all of you are so infatuated with him. My son is also the same. He asked the daughter of the Liu family to keep his will. He just wants to borrow the power of the Liu family to protect your god of racing Qin Guang. Why didn't I see him improve so much normally? When he was writing his will, he had you and his father schemed against me. As Wang Guxiong said this, he took out his phone. It was the text message that Lu Fei had just sent him. Although Lu Fei was not here, she was obviously secretly watching. When the time was right, she quickly sent the text message. In fact, she was also helping Wang Guxiong to calm down. She was afraid that he would hold Qin Guang responsible. Lu Fei also deliberately chose this time because she was afraid that Wang Guxiong would be impatient and send someone to make trouble for Qin Guang. She didn't say some words, but her attitude was very clear. If Wang Guxiong insisted on holding Qin Guang accountable, he would not only have to consider Zhong Bai, but also Lu Fei. Zhong Bai looked at it and blushed even more. After all, Wang Qing had been racing with them all these years. Wang Guxiong's magnanimity was indeed not only because Qin Guang took the initiative to stand up and apologize, but also because of Zhong Bai and Lu Fei's attitude. At this moment, a young and beautiful woman came out of the ward. She still had tears on her face, but there was more joy on her face. She looked at Wang Guxiong timidly and said, "Uncle Wang, Wang Qing wants to see you." Wang Guxiong turned his head and walked inside as he said, "Jia, don't call me Uncle Wang. You two will get engaged in a few days. You can just call me Dad. You need to control him more in the future. He won't be allowed to race again." Jia was overjoyed. After this incident, the relationship between her and Wang Qing had finally been recognized by this complicated family. When she suddenly came back to her senses from the excitement, Jia hurriedly said again, "That's right. Wang Qing just said that he won't race again." Chapter 214. When Qin Guang and Zhong Bai left the hospital together, they were still in a daze. He didn't expect that Wang Guxiong would stop him and say that the Wang family was indebted to him. It was not complicated. Because of the accident, Wang Qing finally came to his senses. He was afraid that his family would vent their anger on Qin Guang, so he asked his father to go back. Wang Qing had repeatedly emphasized to Wang Guxiong not to pursue the matter with Qin Guang and not to blame him. Furthermore, if it wasn't for this matter, Qin Guang would definitely die if he continued racing. Even without the racing god, Wang Qing believed that he would still try his best to break through his limits. This time it was a blessing in disguise. In fact, after the operation he became clear-headed and thought a lot. Although he was still reluctant to give up the excitement brought by that speed, he swore that he would never race again. When the car fell off the cliff, he had used a technique that he learned from Qin Guang to narrowly avoid a tree that was flying in his direction. That was how he managed to survive. Therefore, the racing god didn't hurt him but helped him and saved his life. Later, when Wang Qing heard that Qin Guang was also outside, he forced himself to cheer up and called Qin Guang in. He apologized again. Qin Guang was also ashamed, so he told everyone about his decision not to teach people to race in the future. As for what Wang Qing said before he left, he only regretted that he couldn't go to Hong Kong to compete with the world's top racers, but Qin Guang didn't care about it at all. In fact, Qin Guang made up his mind not only to stop teaching people to race, but also to stop racing himself. He knew how attractive his skills were, but few people who loved racing could resist the temptation of his godly skills. It was like a drug. People knew that they were like moths to the fire, but they could still be intoxicated. In the end, Qin Guang didn't have the heart of a street racer. Zhou Bai sent him directly back to school. Before leaving, Zhou Bai thought for a moment and said, "Brother Qin Guang, remember what Uncle Wang said to you earlier?" Qin Guang closed the door, turned to the driver's seat and asked, "What is it?" Zhou Bai looked at him speechlessly. "You've already forgotten. Uncle Wang said that he owes you a great favor. In the future, if you encounter any difficulties in Wujing City that you can't solve, you can look for him. He will help you once. Those of the older generation aren't like us brats. Our words carry enormous weight, and the weight of our words and actions are completely different." Qin Guang was amused. "Really? Is this sentence as powerful as a death exemption medallion?" Zhou Bai rolled his eyes. "It's not exactly a death exemption card, but it's not far from it. There are some things that we can't help with, but for people of Uncle Wang's generation, it may only take a few words. Let me remind you, this kind of big favor, you have to find the right opportunity to use it. This incident had a great impact on us. Maybe I should learn from Brother Shao Kai and do something." Qin Guang grinned. "If you want to get rich, remember to take your brother with you." "Of course." Zhou Bai smiled. "Then hurry up and go. I'm going back to school. I'm busy revising for the exam." "Poor great monk." Zhou Bai joked again and left. When Qin Guang returned to the dormitory, it was already past 10 p.m. Unlike before, there were no shouts of games coming from the dormitory. Instead, there was the sound of books being flipped and the rustling of writing on paper. University life was like this. Qin Guang wasn't sure about other schools, but at least from what he saw in Gokyo University, especially the male students in his major, they spent most of the semester fooling around. It was only when it was nearing the end of the semester that everyone calmed down and clenched their teeth to cram for the Buddha's feet. It had to be said that most of the people who were able to fight their way out of the tight encirclement and enter Wujing University had their own way of thinking when it came to learning. Although they were usually not serious, their level of sharpening a spear at the last minute was very high. After cramming for a few years, they were able to handle the final exams safely. It was the same for Qin Guang. When it came to critical moments, he was able to concentrate on reading except for English. The others only raised their heads slightly and asked him what he was doing today. Qin Guang casually explained that he went to the hospital to help out with some matters. He did not say anything else and flipped open his book. He had wasted the entire day again. He had to hurry up. In another 3 to 4 days, it would be the legendary stressful physical chemistry course. Anyone who had taken this course would know how scary it was. As for those who had not taken this course, they only needed to ask around about the terrifying 40% failure rate and they would immediately understand. As the saying went, the tree of advanced mathematics was covered with corpses. In fact, these people were ignorant. Compared to physical chemistry, advanced mathematics was like a cute baby, while physical chemistry was like Godzilla, a scourge. When the lights went out at 12 o'clock sharp, Qin Guang's mind was still in a daze. He had only read for 2 hours. The four of them laid on the bed and stopped talking about the game. Instead, they focused on physics and chemistry for a bedtime discussion. It was a heated discussion. It was as if they had returned to the time when China was newly established and the whole country was researching nuclear bombs. They waited until 2 o'clock in the morning before the group of students finally fell asleep. At that moment, Qin Guang was lying on the bed. In his mind, he had made a vow during the day, as he could not race anymore. However, life was just so laughable. Fate played tricks on people like this. The vow that the genius had made a moment ago was ruthlessly smashed in the face of cruel reality, instantly shattering into pieces. Qin Guang's vow seemed so solemn when he made it, but in the face of fate, it was so fragile. There was only one thing that completely changed his mind. The next morning, he suddenly received a call from Tang Ying asking him to go to the hospital immediately. Tang Ying had something important to tell him about the kidney transplant. However, he could not explain it clearly over the phone. He had to talk to her face to face. At that time, Qin Guang had a vague feeling that something was wrong. When he arrived at the hospital, Tang Ying carefully told him the whole story. At first he was furious. He flew into a rage and wanted to tear down the hospital. Then he felt extremely helpless. He could only sit down dejectedly and wave his hand in pain. His face was full of indifference. The kidney was going to be taken away. The donor, who was supposed to leave today, suddenly changed his mind and postponed the matter indefinitely. At that time, Tang Ying panicked and used many connections to finally find out what was going on. A patient with a lot of spare cash suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He directly negotiated a 3 million reward with the donor and his family, hoping that the donor would donate the kidney to him first. Indeed, his condition was not as serious as Feng Rong's, and the kidney was not as compatible as Feng Rong's, but he had money. Tang Ying and Qin Guoli had promised the donor 500,000 according to the usual practice. The donor did not raise any objections, but he refused to sign the agreement. Finally, he changed his mind before the 3 million was thrown at him. Everyone came to a sudden realization. No wonder he had been hanging around and refused to move. There was actually such a reason. Chapter 215. However, Qin Guang still couldn't restrain his anger. His anger was simple. They had agreed on a deal and were only one step away, but she suddenly changed her mind. How could she? This wasn't a simple promise. This was his mother's life. However, he was equally helpless. Although the donor's change of heart was shameful and hateful, she knew that he was going to die and was willing to use his life to exchange for a better life for his family. There was no suspense or difficulty in choosing between 3 million and 500,000. Although the patient's condition wasn't that serious and the compatibility wasn't that good to the donor, it wasn't something she needed to care about. She wouldn't be able to live anyway. All she needed to do was consider giving up her life to get the last bit of wealth for her family. Qin Guang, don't be sad, there's still a chance. Tang Ying looked at Qin Guang's ashen face and didn't know how to comfort him. Qin Guang's mind was in a mess. After a long time he stood up abruptly and asked, 3 million? Is that all that the donor can afford? Tang Ying nodded. I've asked someone I know. That family really worked hard. They sold everything and borrowed whatever they could. After all, with that illness, everyone knows that the last resort is to get a kidney transplant, so they gave it their all. Qin Guang slammed the table fiercely. Isn't this nonsense? With their compatibility, even if the transplant is successful, there's a high chance that it won't be compatible. In the end, the transplanted kidney won't be able to function at all. It's a pure waste. Tang Ying sighed again. You're thinking from your own point of view, but for someone else, even if there's only a 50% chance of success, they're still willing to give it their all. Qin Guang fell silent. He really wasn't in the position to blame others for this kind of thing. He couldn't blame the donor for changing her mind. There was no choice between 3 million and 500,000. He also couldn't blame her for intervening. No one wanted to die. If he had to blame someone, he could only blame fate for messing with him. If it wasn't for the fact that so many things had happened to his family in the past year, he and his father would have been able to fork out 3 million. Does my dad already know about this? Qin Guang asked. Tang Ying shook her head. I haven't told him yet. I just found out about the situation this morning, so I rushed to tell you. Qin Guang stood up. Well, that's good too. Don't tell my dad about it for now. I'll think of something. 3 million is nothing to me. Walking out of Tang Ying's office, Qin Guang sat on a chair by the flower terrace in front of the hospital, his mind in a mess. Many thoughts popped up in his mind one after another. Among them, the most frequent thought was to borrow money. Currently, his father still had about 1.4 million in his card, which was not far from reaching 3 million. He just had to find someone to borrow 1.6 million from. But who could he borrow it from? He couldn't count on his old buddy Zhu Xian for that much money. Zhong Bai, Ruffy, Tang Ying? Or should he look for Jin Shuiwen and Jiang Yage? Based on the current situation, it wouldn't be too difficult for them to come up with so much money. But why should he borrow money from them? Just based on the fact that we're friends? His family had already gone bankrupt and he didn't have any assets left. Don't think that it was easy for him to earn money recently. To put it bluntly, he was still just a college student running the internet. Why should he borrow 1.6 million from someone? With my face. With the cup in my hand? What a joke. Even if someone was willing to lend him the money, Qin Guang couldn't convince himself to take the initiative. There was another way. Go and kill that despicable, shameless bastard who tried to meddle in our affairs. Don't you want to live? I'll kill you right now. You're already dead. Don't mention 3 million, even if you took out 100 million, you'd still be a dead body. Just as this terrifying thought popped up, Qin Guang immediately threw it out of his head. Don't joke around, this wasn't the Sea of Time, this was the real world. Even if he had countless ways to quietly kill the other party, he wouldn't be able to deal with the possible drawbacks after the deed was done. In the end, he was just an ordinary person. If he rashly killed someone, even if he left a trace, he might fall into an irrecoverable state. Qin Guang asked himself, although he had lost control of his emotions and came up with this terrifying thought, but if it really came to that, he might not be able to be ruthless. These chaotic thoughts kept reverberating in the depths of his mind, intertwining with each other. Unknowingly, the sun had already set and an entire afternoon had passed. His stomach was growling in hunger, and the strong sense of hunger kept stimulating his nerves, finally bringing him back to his senses. Either he killed someone, or he borrowed money. This didn't seem to be a difficult choice. Borrowing money was definitely more reliable than killing someone. Qin Guang sighed and stood up. He held his phone in his hand and the number displayed on it was Wenwen's number. Although he had never asked about Wenwen's family background, their friendship in the past 3 years had always been simple. But Qin Guang could faintly feel that Wenwen could indeed lend him 1.6 million and there was no possibility of her rejecting it. Although this thought in his mind was without reason, but Qin Guang believed without any reason that Wenwen would not reject his seemingly unreasonable request. At this last moment, Qin Guang did not hesitate too much. The person he wanted and was most willing to rely on was indeed Wenwen. He knew that after he made this call, the originally simple friendship between the two would definitely have some changes, be it good or bad. This was not a small number that people could face calmly. This was 1.6 million. For many middle-class families living in Wuxia City, this was a huge sum of money that could change the fate of this family. Qin Guang did not know, in Gokyo University dozens of miles away, Wenwen was standing on the rooftop and second Uncle Wen was looking at her from behind. Why don't you take the initiative to call him? You know how much he needs money now. Second Uncle Wen asked. In Wenwen's hand she was also holding her phone. She looked up at the blood-red sunset, her face was indescribable and she just shook her head slightly. I don't want to. You don't want to help him? Second Uncle Wen asked. Wenwen shook her head again. I want to help him more than anyone else. I even want to personally help him get rid of that reckless troublemaker. But I can't give you the chance, right? I can't bear to part with him. Second Uncle Wen smiled. Don't say that. In fact, what you are most afraid of is not us but himself. Wenwen's expression was very painful and also very conflicted. Indeed, even if I directly give him this money, my mood will not change. What will change is only you and Qin Guang. This is not a knot that can be resolved with words. I can't tell you clearly and I can't tell him with words. Even if on the surface nothing seems to change, but once this thing is done, my relationship with him will never go back to the past. You are not afraid that he will find someone else? Second Uncle Wen asked again. He has recently been quite close with those 2 celebrities. I'm not afraid. If he really decides to take the initiative to borrow money, he will definitely find me. I don't care about his relationship with anyone else. I only care about my relationship with him. He and I are friends, he is my only friend. You are quite open-minded. Second Uncle Wen didn't say anything else. After saying this, his figure slowly faded into the darkness and disappeared. He knew that Wenwen was in a bad mood now. Although he was happy to see the change in the relationship between Qin Guang and Wenwen, he did not dare to show his pride in front of Wenwen. Above the vault of heaven, the thick clouds dispersed, and a touch of clear moonlight shone from the sky, shining on Wenwen's body. The cold wind blew and Wenwen's clothes fluttered. Her hand holding the phone tightened. She knew that Qin Guang's call should be coming soon. That man would never hesitate for more than a day. He also knew that this call would change something, but he had no choice. Indeed, standing in Wuxia City Hospital, Qin Guang's finger was already on the call button. At this moment, a person suddenly poked her head out from the inpatient department. It was Tang Ying and she shouted, Qin Guang, come here. Wang Qing is looking for you. It's very, very important. He wants you to go immediately. Chapter 216. Qin Guang's fingers paused as he was about to make a call. He turned to look at Tang Ying on the windowsill. Why is he looking for me? Tang Ying shook her head. I don't know. You know where his ward is. Go talk to him. He called me just now but he didn't tell me what it was about. When Qin Guang arrived at Wang Qing's ward, he had just finished his meal. His family had already gone home to rest and only his beautiful girlfriend He Jia was still there. Qin Guang squeezed out a smile. You look like you've recovered well. Wang Qing smiled embarrassedly. It's all thanks to God. My brain and stomach are bleeding but I'm fine. Why are you looking for me? Qin Guang was a little anxious. He had just mustered up the courage to call Wenwen, but Wang Qing's delay made the call. He wanted to deal with Wang Qing as soon as possible so that he could call Wenwen tonight. To his surprise, Wang Qing turned his head abruptly and looked at him with burning eyes. Brother Racing God, I already know what happened to your family. Qin Guang was slightly startled. So, are you looking down on me for teaching you how to race for money? Wang Qing shook his head, but because his movements were too big he seemed to have affected his injury slightly. A trace of pain appeared on his face and He Jia hurried over to help him. After a while Wang Qing said again, I don't mean that. I don't mean to look down on you. What I'm talking about is not only about your mother's illness, but also about what happened today. I asked Dr. Tang to invite you here for this. Qin Guang suddenly realized that he had been too sensitive. Brother Qin Guang, I'll lend you money. I'll lend you 3 million. On the other side, Wang Qing didn't give him any time to let his imagination run wild. He suddenly threw out his real intention. Qin Guang was stunned. He didn't expect Wang Qing to be so straightforward. He didn't even understand that his friendship with Wang Qing hadn't reached this point, so there was no reason for him to be so generous. Of course his family wasn't lacking in money, but he had no reason to help her like this. Just because you admire my driving skills? Stop messing around. You just survived a tragic car accident, okay? He even swore yesterday that he would never race again. No matter how good my driving skills are, it has nothing to do with him, right? Seeing that Qin Guang was silent, Wang Qing could roughly guess what he was thinking and continued. Big brother Qin Guang, although we haven't known each other for a long time, I can roughly understand your feelings. Although you're born into an ordinary family and look like you're easy to talk to, you're actually very proud, aren't you? Qin Guang waved his hand. No, I'm not arrogant at all. If you're really not arrogant, you wouldn't have hesitated for even a second when I offered to lend you money, right? Wang Qing grinned, but he was very careful to control his movements, for fear that it would affect his injury again. Qin Guang was stunned at first and then he smiled. What other conditions do you have? Tell me, I've been waiting for you to say this. Actually, I've already contacted a friend in Hong Kong a few months ago. I asked him to prepare a car for me. It was just modified a few days ago, and the race has also been arranged. It's going to be tomorrow night. Wang Qing only said one sentence and Qin Guang could roughly guess what he wanted to say. Sure enough, he continued, the reason why I was so anxious the day before yesterday was that I was going to Hong Kong today. I was afraid that I would change the track there, and I wouldn't be able to grasp the fleeting inspiration and miss the opportunity to have an epiphany. It's a pity that my talent is limited and in the end I was still unlucky. Now that I've survived, I don't want to race again. However, in addition to this, the moment I rushed out of the Fengquan mountain track I finally understood one thing. Qin Guang wondered, what is it? As Wang Qing spoke he gradually became excited again. I finally know that no matter how hard I work, no matter how hard I try, I can't catch up to brother Qin Guang's level. It's not that I don't work hard enough, but that I'm naturally not as good as you. The same S-shaped curve, even if I use all my strength I still can't float over it like you. Your control of the car's performance, your analysis of the car's inertia, your grasp of the friction between the car's wheels and the ground, these things are simply wonderful. The gap between me and you is not something that can be made up for by hard work. You're the real genius and your driving skills are not something that people like me can learn and imitate. Qin Guang sighed. That's true, so it was a mistake for me to try to teach you guys. Wang Qing shook his head slightly. Don't talk about this anymore. What's more, we were the ones who insisted on learning how to drive. In order to get a place I even offended a little brother named Zhong Bai. It's true that I won't race again and I don't want to struggle anymore. I also heard from Dr. Tang that you also vowed not to race again. However, I can't agree with this. You're a natural racer and you obviously have skills that no one else can reach. There's no need to let your talent be covered by dust because of me. Qin Guang shook his head. Do you want me to go to Xianxia to participate in the race on your behalf? But I really don't want to race anymore. Wang Qing tried to get up, but He Jia held him down. No, you must go. I'll lend you 3 million. Solve the problem in front of you. But my condition is that you must participate in the Xianxia mountain track. With your strength you can get at least 10 million yuan. You'll be able to pay me back easily. 10 million yuan. Qin Guang was shocked. He had thought that the prize money of the mountain track would be very high, but when he really got the specific number he couldn't help but be shocked. This could indeed solve his urgent problem. Didn't you say 3 or 4 million yuan before? How did it become 10 million yuan now? Qin Guang vaguely remembered what Wang Qing said when he was chatting with him at Fengquan Mountain that day. Wang Qing grinned. If I go I can only get 3 or 4 million yuan at most. But if you go, won't it be 10 million yuan? He paused and said again, I know that my request may be a little difficult and even a little too much. If it was someone else, this request of mine might be enough to send that person into a dangerous situation, but I know you're different. You're really different. You're the strongest racer that I can imagine in my life. No matter how fierce the competition on the mountain track is, you can't lose. You won't be in any danger. Wang Qing's emotions gradually became more and more excited. Although he had given up racing, it was obvious that the passion in this kid's heart was not so easily extinguished. Brother Qin Guang, as long as you are willing to participate in the race, no one in this world can be your opponent. The modified car that my friend prepared for me is the culmination of my years of painstaking efforts. My driving level may be far inferior to yours, but my car modification skills are definitely the best in the whole of Wujing City. I signed up for the annual car gambling race. If I directly choose to withdraw because of injury, this car that I've invested 10 million yuan in may be given away for nothing. Qin Guang was puzzled. Car gambling race? There's such a thing? Can't you just find someone to help you participate in the race? Then it won't be considered a withdrawal, right? Chapter 217. Wang Qing shook his head and said, Let me explain the rules of the competition to you first. You'll understand after listening to it. The entire competition was divided into 2 stages. The first stage was the normal elimination round, and the second stage was known as the race to protect the car. The elimination round was divided into 4 rounds. In the first round there were 8 groups with 8 cars in each group, for a total of 64 cars. The top 4 of each group would advance to the next round. The champion of each group could choose one of the 4 cars that were eliminated. The chosen car would be locked in the garage until the end of the race. In the second round, there were 4 groups with 8 cars in each group, for a total of 32 cars. If the group champion of the first elimination round still won the group champion of the second elimination round, then one of the 4 eliminated cars in the second elimination round could be pre-selected and locked in the garage. However, if he didn't win the championship again, even if he entered the top 4, he would lose the chance to take away the car he won in the first round, even though he could enter the next elimination round. In the future he would no longer have the chance to choose a car. Apart from that, if the champion of this round didn't win in the first round, he would also not have the right to choose a car. All in all, he couldn't lose even once. That was the reason why the competition in the past had lost its reputation by the end of the second round. In the third round there were only 2 groups left with 8 cars in each group for a total of 16 cars. The rules of the competition were the same as the previous round. If someone could win 3 rounds in a row, he would have the right to take away 3 cars. In the fourth round the 8 cars would compete in the final round, and the prize money would be divided according to the ranking. The highest prize money could be 8 million and the lowest would be 2 million. Apart from that, the rules of the competition remained the same. If someone could win 4 rounds in a row, he would first receive the accumulated prize money of 8 million, and the chance to take away 4 cars. Of course, it was easy to say but difficult to do. When it came to racing, it was extremely difficult to win 1 round of the championship, not to mention 4 rounds in a row. Even if one performed extremely well, as long as he lost the championship in one of the 4 rounds, he would only get second or third place and he would not be able to take away any cars. Therefore, the competition was just a gimmick. However, if someone could win 4 rounds in a row, it meant that he had the ability and potential to dominate the race. After that, the real climax of the car racing competition would come, and the terrifying battle to protect the car would begin. The appearance of an expert who had already proven his strength after winning 4 rounds in a row would attract true top-notch experts. The owners of the locked cars would also try their best to hire experts to protect their cars. If the champion of the 4 elimination rounds wanted to take away the car he had chosen, he would have to participate in the next 3 rounds of battles to protect his car. In these 3 rounds of battles, the champion would have to face the siege of the 7 new cars by himself and fight his way out of the encirclement. Different from the knockout stage, those who dared to directly participate in the battle to protect their carriage were all top-notch experts, and none of them were easy to deal with. That was because the driver who won the championship in the battle would not only get the prize money for the battle, but also receive a huge reward from the other car owners. Racers who had won the first 4 rounds, no matter how strong they were, could lose a fat piece of meat at any time. However, risks and benefits always coexisted. The greater the risk, the greater the benefit. If the ace who stood out from the knockout stage could win 3 rounds in a row, he would be able to pick one of the last 4 cars to be locked in the garage. If he won 7 rounds in a row, he would get 7 cars, and at the same time the accumulated prize money would snowball. Wang Qing couldn't say exactly how much it would be. After all, the rankings would be different in the later rounds, but he could foresee that it would be a terrifying number in the tens of millions. Even if he lost the championship and the car racing competition came to an end, as long as he could stay in the top 4, the competition could continue, but only the prize money could continue to be accumulated. Therefore, even if he couldn't win the championship and lost his car, as long as he made it to the top 4 in the 5th round, he would still get the tens of millions of prize money. For many racers, this was a holy land where they could reach the top in a single step. However, behind this beautiful thing, there was often a dark side that reeked of blood. Over the years, only a small number of people were able to achieve success in this increasingly cruel gambling war, but even more people lost their lives in vain. After listening to Wang Qing, Qin Guang grinned. He wasn't worried that he would get into an accident, but he still recognized the difficulty. So, actually, no one can really take the car away. This requirement is a little too exaggerated and harsh. Even if you think with your toes, you'll know that even if you make it to the end of the car race, you'll be the world's enemy. Who can guarantee that you can continue to win? You have to win 3 rounds in a row. Isn't that a fantasy? You don't have to worry too much about your car. It won't be lost. Wang Qing nodded. That's true. In fact, it's been 3 years since anyone has been able to take a car away from a car racing competition. After all, the further you go, the more masters there are likely to appear. The more people there are likely to have their cars taken away, and these people will try their best to hire masters to mess things up so that they can keep their cars. But what I care about the most isn't how much money my car is worth. I just don't want my years of hard work to go to waste without even having a race on the track. Also, I've already vowed to never race again. This is also my last dream. Brother Qinguang, whether it's to help me or to help yourself, you must participate in the competition. Participating in a car racing competition might just be a trial and a challenge for most people. Betting on cars is just a gimmick to increase the excitement. But it's different for you. You have the ability to win until the end. I firmly believe in this. The cars you win, they're all yours. I don't want them, not even one. You can get more than just the 10 million prize money. You can also get 7 expensive luxury cars. At the same time, Qin Guang's breathing gradually turned heavy. Previously, when he saw Lu Fei, Zhong Bai, and the others drive a supercar team to the school, even though he said it was disdainful, he understood that the roar of the engines had indeed shocked him to the core. What if I can also have 7 of these cars? Just the thought of it made his heart beat faster and faster. He tried hard to control his emotions, but in turn he poured cold water on himself. I know my driving skills are amazing, but aren't you too confident in me? If I want to win until the end, the competition will become more and more intense, right? Wang Qing thought for a moment, then said again, it's indeed difficult, but there are people who have done it. 4 years ago, Tommy Diesel appeared out of nowhere on the mid-mountain racetrack, and in the end he took away 7 cars at once. There are at least 9 people in the world who are as competitive as he is. These 10 people are called the top 10 car kings by those of us who love racing. They have all won a car racing competition. Dominating the car racing competition is the only way for an ordinary driver to ascend to the throne. Of course, since the first car racing competition was held in Los Angeles 30 years ago, it wasn't until 10 years ago that Sonics won for the first time. In the following years there have been many masters. Including Diesel, who won the most recent championship, there are only these 10 people who have won the race and are recognized as the car kings. There have been no less than 50 people who have died in the race. I'm not going to die in the race. Qin Guang grinned. I've died 95 times in the Racing Gods Cup, and that was in a modified Alto. If I still died driving a supercar in the real world, it would be a waste of the 95 times I've died in the Racing Gods Cup. Although he hadn't really raced before, Qin Guang knew that he who had been trained in the world in a cup was definitely not a fake. His fighting spirit gradually rose. He didn't have a lofty dream like someone like Wang Qing, but he was about to faint from the potential profits that exceeded his expectations. 7 luxurious cars and a reward of tens of millions. The old man is just a driver who earns a few thousand yuan a month, okay? I can't calm down at all. If I can really win in the end, will the top 10 car kings come? I'm quite curious how good they are. Wang Qing nodded. We can't rule out the possibility that 7 of the top 10 car kings, including Dominic Diesel, will come. At their level, money is one thing, but if there are new opponents who can make their blood boil, they will go crazy with excitement. Whether it's for money or fame, they will flock to you. If that really happens, it will be the biggest event in the world's underground racing world. Qin Guang smiled. I don't really understand the mentality of you street racers, but I can roughly understand the logic behind it. It's lonely at the top, right? Wang Qing grinned. The underground street racers are not the same as the public rally racers. People like us have a crazy gene in our bones. We would rather tie our heads to our waistbands and be infatuated with the crazy rush of adrenaline, not to mention the top 10 car kings who have reached the pinnacle of their skills. Looking at the world, it's been 3 years since anyone has truly ascended to the throne in any of the racing competitions, and no one has even made it to the last round of the race. I think those people must be quite lonely. Chapter 218. The light in Qin Guang's eyes grew brighter and brighter. Do you know how good those top racers are? Have you seen them compete with your own eyes? Wang Qing turned his head and looked straight at Qin Guang. After a while he said, You're finally tempted. Qin Guang laughed. Money moves people. I'm just an ordinary person. A man can't be rich without a windfall, and a horse can't get fat without night grass. Not to mention night grass that can make me fat in one bite. How can I not be tempted? Night grass? Wang Qingzhen never expected that Qin Guang would use such words to describe his dream, which he nearly choked on his saliva. After adjusting his breathing, he said in a heavy tone, 4 years ago when Diesel participated in the competition, I was still a kid. However, I watched the entire process, and at that time I already knew a lot about cars. I believe that you're stronger than him. Much better. You really have a lot of confidence in me. Qin Guang said again, but he fell into deep thought. It's not that I have a lot of confidence in you, but you really don't understand what it means to run 8 minutes with my car at Fengquan Mountain. Running an average speed of 150 kilometers per hour to the end of Fengquan Mountain. Heavens! We built this road ourselves and we know how difficult it is. We don't believe that anyone in this world can do it. Qin Guang was indifferent. He thought to himself, if you knew that I was just casually running that day and didn't use my full strength, would you faint again? While Qin Guang was letting his imagination run wild, Wang Qing suddenly reacted and turned to look at him. Brother Qin Guang, you don't really think that Zhou Bai and I are stupid rich second-generation kids, do you? Damn. Look at your expression. Don't try to hide it. Qin Guang chuckled. Isn't that the case? I just drive a little better. I really think that you guys are too respectful to me. You guys are too easy to fool. I feel that you guys are very silly and naive. You. Wang Qing almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He truly felt that it was a complete waste for such a terrifying divine technique to fall into the hands of someone like Qin Guang. Wang Qing slumped against the back of the bed, his heart about to break. After a long while he said faintly, Brother Qin Guang, we call you the god of racing not to be polite. We're not respecting you, we're worshipping you. You know what? We worship you. We feel that you are a true god. True god. Damn it. If you say that, I won't be taken as the leader of some evil cult and be captured and shot, right? Qin Guang rolled his eyes. Are you exaggerating? Wang Qing put on a pained expression. Is that exaggerated? Now transportation is convenient and we don't lack money. Let's not talk about Zhou Bai. Let's talk about me. All these years, in order to learn how to drive, I've watched all kinds of large-scale competitions. Other than Dominic Diesel, I've watched the live competitions of the other racing kings at least 5 or 6 times. Otherwise, how could I be called the best in the 5 capitals? Can you say that I'm a frog in a well and short-sighted? Isn't that pure nonsense? I'm someone who's seen the world. I'm Wang Qing, the son of Wang Guxiong. How many people in both the underworld and the underworld in Wujing City have to give me face? Why is it that after sitting in your car once, they're willing to prostrate themselves in admiration and listen to everything you say? Haven't you thought about why? Wang Qing's heart really ached. I worship you like a god, but you only treat me like a clown. My hot blood has spilled into the dog kennel. If you really listened to everything I said, you wouldn't be lying here. Qin Guang's words made Wang Qing's pretentious act go down the drain. Alright, don't mind the details. I've seen a lot of people race, and I've also seen people occasionally drift to such a degree like you. But there's never been anyone who could drive to the limit in all the corners of the track like you did, and control the car so precisely like a precision instrument. No, you've even surpassed a machine. If others wanted to play like you, they wouldn't be able to survive even if they had 10 lives. Qin Guang chuckled. I've probably lost 95 lives to practice this skill. 10 lives wouldn't be enough. Finishing Phoenix Spring Mountain with an average speed of 150 km per hour, hee. Even if Diesel came to Phoenix Spring Mountain to train for a year, he wouldn't be able to do it. He wouldn't even be able to surpass 135 km per hour. I almost lost my life and I still couldn't surpass 110 km per hour. I'm just trying to surpass the last yard. They say that the further you go, the harder it is to improve. Motherf asterisk Kerr, I just want to improve by 1 yard. But I'm F asterisk king 40 yards away from you. You're practically cheating. You're not human at all. I've already said this much. Brother racing god, let's go. Wang Qing's emotions were out of control again and he began to dance. He Jia, who was beside him, decisively pressed a button, and the bandages that had been prepared for him immediately came into effect. They quickly tightened and the young man was once again tied up like a dumpling. Qin Guang ignored him. Instead, he stood up and began to pace back and forth in the ward, thinking hard in his mind. Before today, he roughly knew how good his driving skills were after practicing in the Heavenly Holy Grail, but he didn't have a clear idea. He only knew that he was definitely very good, very strong, and based on the standards of Dota's hellish training grounds, he should indeed be the best in the world when it comes to racing. But before that, he really didn't think about participating in any competitions. His understanding of racing before he met Zhou Bai and the others was only at the level of watching rally races on Central TV's Department 5. The so-called underground racing in his eyes was nothing more than a group of ignorant, yet stupid rich second-generation rich kids who were bored out of their wits. He had never thought that there would be any deeper meaning behind it. As for how much those regular rally champions could earn in a year, he had a rough idea in his mind. At most, it would be a few million or tens of millions. With his own strength, it wasn't impossible for him to win the rally championship. But now he was just a poor college student. Inexplicably, he went to someone else's team and told them that he was 10 times better than them. Let him participate in the competition and he would bring them along to show off and fly? It would be strange if they didn't beat him up with a stick. Well, even if they really believed him and let him run 1 lap and knock everyone off their feet, they would still let him join the team. A new problem arose. Competitions weren't always possible. To participate in international or even domestic competitions, one had to sign up, register, and verify one's qualifications. It didn't matter if one was a racing god or a racing god. Without the proper procedures, one couldn't even qualify to participate in the competition. By the time he was done with all the unimaginable procedures, it would take him at least half a year to go from an ordinary person to a racing driver. He couldn't wait. Even if he really made it all the way, why would a new driver with no name or surname be allowed to participate in international competitions from the very beginning? He would have to fight his way through the domestic competitions 1 level at a time. The prize money in domestic competitions was low and there were a lot of unspoken rules. God knew when he would be able to stand on the top of the international competition like an F1 driver like Schumacher and make a name for himself. It would take at least 2 or 3 years and at most 5 or 6 years. By then it would be too late. As for underground racing, after meeting Zhou Bai and the others, Qin Guang had only thought of opening a racing god training class because of his inertia and vision. He had never thought of participating in any competitions. Until today, when Wang Qing in his own way suddenly opened another door for Qin Guang that belonged to a real racing family. It suddenly dawned on Qin Guang that underground racing could actually make money like this. So much money. Chapter 219. Of course, the mid-mountain racetrack wasn't really without a threshold. Just the car requirement alone was enough to keep out most of the ambitious people who were as fragile as a piece of paper. You can't even get a car worth a few million, so what are you going to use to compete? However, Wang Qing had already paved the way for him to compete. He had already signed up, so there was no need to check his qualifications. He had even prepared the car for him. Now Qin Guang was just missing an answer. This was a sudden opportunity to change his fate that had fallen from the sky. Qin Guang could no longer remain calm. However, this was still an extremely important decision. Qin Guang hesitated for a moment. All right. Even if you really have full confidence in me and I know what level I'm at, I'm not confident that I can win until the end. Just thinking about it makes me feel that it's a bit difficult. Wang Qing continued, it doesn't matter even if you really lose in the last round. You already have a $10 million prize, don't you? You have to give me a definite answer. Are you going? Qin Guang smiled viciously. Of course I'm going. I was just being humble out of habit. Not only am I going, but I'm also going to win until the end. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it big. This is my chance to change my life. I can't refuse this kind of temptation. The world of the rich is really scary. I never thought that racing could make money like this. You'll definitely be able to keep winning. Oh right, can I participate every year? If there's only one time a year. Qin Guang couldn't stay calm anymore. As long as he took this gamble, he would be able to lead his parents to a life where they didn't need money anymore. How could he stay calm? If it was only once a year. He didn't dare to think about it. He really didn't dare to think about it. Wang Qing looked at him angrily. You wish. However, there's always a rule in these kinds of races. If you win this time, you can't take away the car as the winner anymore. Not only in the half-mountain racetrack but also in other races around the world. Even if you win again, the car won't be given to you. Otherwise, if the top 10 car kings secretly reached a tacit agreement, wouldn't this race become an ATM for you guys? Then what was the point of others playing? Besides, he only needed to win once to prove his strength and status as the king of cars. Wasn't that enough? The publicly acknowledged king of racing could only participate in the battle to protect his car and be the final touchstone for the new king of racing. Of course, it's more likely that it's a threshold that no one can cross. After hearing this, Qin Guang sighed, feeling very regretful. I forget it. It's good that I'm only participating this time. Otherwise, I'm really afraid I'll get addicted. Although I don't like racing, I like money. 10 Great King of Cars. After this year, I'll let them know that there are 10 racing kings, but I'm the only racing god. Qin Guang stood up with lofty sentiments. Through the training of the world in a cup, Qin Guang became the best English speaker in the world. Well, no one would take it seriously even if he told them about it. Even he himself could not understand it. The world's best English speaker? Full of Chinibu aura. He had also become the best Dota player in the world. Well, the terrible sequelae had prevented him from reaching the third set, and from time to time Jiang Luhua would appear out of nowhere and hit him in the head with a stick. He had the ability of a great god, but it couldn't last long. He had also become the best sharpener in the world. Forget that tragedy. Then this time he finally decided that even if it was just a momentary brilliance, he would show another skill he had mastered to the world. Taking advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, he wanted to tell the world that he was the best racing person in the world. Even if it was just a momentary brilliance, it would still be dazzling. He would change his fate in one fell swoop. From now on he would no longer be a poor man. His ambition was gradually ignited and his blood could no longer cool. About half an hour later, the 3 million that Wang Qing had lent was transferred into Qin Guoli's bank card. As for Qin Guang himself, he had already set off for the airport. He didn't want to tell Qin Guoli what he was going to do, so he only asked Tang Ying to help pick up the donor according to the original plan. He would give the donor a price of 4 million. For the sake of his mother's illness, Qin Guang was willing to pay any amount of money. The kidney was in someone else's body, and he wanted to take it from someone else to save his mother's illness. Qin Guang didn't think it was shameful for the donor to ask for such an exorbitant price. On the contrary, he was grateful to the other party. It wasn't a strand of hair or a finger, it was a kidney. The hateful one was the guy who had interfered. You're rich, right? 3 million, right? I'll slap you to death with 4 million. Let's see how rich you are. Qin Guang wasn't even worried that the other party would continue to raise the price. Since he was going to participate in the competition, he had to have the determination and courage to succeed or die trying. As long as he could win in the end, 4 million wasn't a big deal. He could even afford 5 or 6 million. As long as the problem could be solved with money, it wouldn't be a problem. He had used the power of fate to make a perfectly compatible kidney appear in his mother's life. How could he let anything happen to it because of money? As long as he was sure that he could pay back the money as soon as possible, he would dare to be thick-skinned and borrow money from anyone. I'll pay it back in a few days. I won't fall so easily. No one can take my mother's life away from me. After parking the car in the parking lot of the Wujing airport, Qin Guang quietly leaned against the driver's seat, still waiting for Lu Fei. He was unfamiliar with the people and the place in Xianxia, so he needed someone to lead the way. When Lu Fei knew that he was going to participate in the competition in Xianxia, she immediately volunteered. According to her, she was familiar with the roads in Xianxia, and she wouldn't feel at ease if someone else took the job. Zhou Bai originally wanted to come, but he was asked by Qin Guang to help Tang Ying go to the city where the donor was located and bring her over as soon as possible to prevent any possibility of accidents. Qin Guang could tolerate anything. He could accept any accidents, but he didn't wish for anything to happen to his kidney. After all, he couldn't rule out the possibility of the troublemaker making a move first. Thus he decided to let Zhou Bai, who had nothing better to do, make a move. Anyway, he owed a favor and there was no need to worry about the debt. He could pay it back slowly. As for the final exam that would follow in 2 or 3 days, Qin Guang could only give up and wait for the makeup exam at the start of the next semester. Since he wanted to give up the exam, he should call Teacher Zhou and ask for leave. Anyway, the plane would leave at about 10:40, and Lu Fei would take a while to arrive. Qin Guang dialed Zhou Jingxi's number. It was already 9:30 at night. Zhou Jingxi seemed to have gone to bed, and there was a hint of laziness in her voice. Chapter 220. She was a little surprised to suddenly receive a call from Qin Guang. Qin Guang, why are you calling me so late at night? She purposely kept a distance between them as she spoke, because she realized that just seeing the student's phone number made her heart pound. After the incident with Wang Ren, Zhou Jingxi could no longer face Qin Guang like an ordinary student. Qin Guang thought for a moment and said, Teacher Zhou, I will be on a plane to Xianxia in about an hour. It will take at least 8 days for me to come back. I'm afraid I will have to miss the final exams. I would like to trouble you to help me sign up for the makeup exams. What? Zhou Jingxi suddenly sat up straight on the bed. There are still 4 compulsory courses including physics and chemistry. How can you miss the exams just because you say so? What are you going to Xianxia for? Qin Guang was silent for a moment before continuing, I don't want to tell you the specifics. In short, as long as it doesn't break the law, I have to go. This is very important. It's related to my mother's treatment fees. Qin Guang, don't do anything rash. Recently, I've been discussing with Sun Xiaoxuan about donating to you. We can gather at least 100,000 yuan if we call for help in the academy. As Zhou Jingxi spoke, she agitatedly stood up from the bed and paced around the room in a panic. She didn't even care about the cold night wind blowing through the gaps in her silk pajamas and into her body, making her feel cold all over. Qin Guang smiled bitterly. Sun Xiaoxuan was like this. She always liked to hide her concern for you until the moment she showed it to you. Thank you, Teacher Zhou. Please thank Sun Xiaoxuan for me too. But it's not enough. It's really not enough. The amount is too much. Besides, the person who's sick isn't me, it's my mother. The people in the class will be easy to talk to, but the people in the other classes in the academy won't be so willing. Don't force others too much. It won't be good for you and Sun Xiaoxuan. In the end, Qin Guang decided to refuse their kindness. They already had a debt of several million yuan. For the sake of a few tens of thousands of yuan that they might be able to scrape together, Sun Xiaoxuan and Teacher Zhou would have to owe everyone in the academy a favor. This was too difficult. After hanging up Zhou Jingxi's call, Wenwen's call came not long after. The two of them looked at the phone in silence for a while. Qin Guang was the first to lose his cool. He forced himself to sound relaxed. What's wrong? Our campus bell is calling me so late at night. Do you miss me? Wenwen, who was on the other end of the phone, spat. I didn't miss you. Your mother is going to have surgery in a few days, right? How are the preparations going? Qin Guang's heart skipped a beat. He rarely told her about his mother. Could it be that she knew something? It's all right. I'll prepare to receive the donor tomorrow. With Professor Lu as the surgeon, there shouldn't be any problems. Qin Guang thought for a bit and lied to Wenwen. Wenwen was speechless. Why aren't you talking? Qin Guang asked again. Wenwen took a deep breath and said, although I don't know where you are now and what you're planning to do, I don't know. But since you can think of a way to solve it yourself, I can rest assured. In short, take care of yourself. I'm still waiting for you to come back and play with me. Of course. Just wait for me to use Ghost to carry the entire game. If you are willing to choose support to protect me, it would be good for me to turn the tables with a big Naga holy sword in my hand. Qin Guang laughed. After chatting with Qin Guang for a while, Wenwen hung up the phone. No one knew if she was talking to second Uncle Wen or talking to herself. This guy has always been like this. You would rather take the risk yourself than owe me more. Is our friendship that important to you? I know you're a good driver, but that's racing. Why don't I send a few people to protect him? If he dies there. Second Uncle Wen's voice suddenly rang out. Shut up. He won't die. Wenwen's voice sounded a little shaky. Protect? How? He's going to race. What will protect him? I can only trust him. Although I don't know what happened to him, I know that he's getting stronger at a speed that I can't understand. Second uncle, I actually don't understand him that well. But that's not important. It's enough that he understands me. Qin Guang finally waited for Lu Fei. The two of them didn't exchange too much pleasantries and directly prepared to set off. Lu Fei seemed to want to say something but stopped. She seemed to want to stop Qin Guang from going to Xianxia to participate in the competition. Wang Qing's accident also had a great impact on her. But when she saw Qin Guang's bright eyes that seemed to be able to penetrate the void, she knew that nothing she said would be of any use. A pair of iron wings slowly rose in the cold night sky, taking the two of them straight to Xianxia, thousands of kilometers away. Lu Fei looked at Qin Guang, who was lying beside her and sleeping like a child. A trace of rare tenderness flashed through her eyes. The sleeping racing god seemed to be much cuter than the awake one. Unconsciously, she slowly reached out her hand and wanted to touch Qin Guang's face. But halfway through she withdrew her hand like a frightened rabbit because Qin Guang turned over. That night many people in Wujing City were destined to be sleepless. Wang Qing, who was lying on the hospital bed, was so excited that he tossed and turned. Zhong Bai and Tang Ying, who were driving overnight to the southeast province thousands of kilometers away. Zhuo Jingxi, who was standing by the window and looking at the direction of Xiangyang, didn't know whether it was warm or cold. Over and over again Sun Xiaoxuan edited the words in his heart, but in the end he deleted all of them. Qin Guoli, who was squatting by the window of the corridor outside the ward and smoking one cigarette after another. An Wenwen, who was sitting cross-legged on the roof of the dormitory with her eyes closed and a white aura flowing around her, made second Uncle Wen tremble with fear. As early as halfway through the flight, Qin Guang woke up, and then he began to do some strange things that Lu Fei couldn't understand. For example, he first very seriously checked his mobile phone. Maybe it was not a mobile phone anymore. As early as when the plane took off, the flight attendants asked everyone to turn off their mobile phones. At that time, Qin Guang suddenly realized something, and then he took out his mobile phone and began to disassemble it on the spot. The mobile phone body, the back cover, the battery and the SIM card were disassembled one by one, and then put into different trouser pockets. The flight attendants thought that he was deliberately making trouble, and looked at him with a hidden bitterness in their eyes. Qin Guang didn't explain to anyone, but just shrugged his shoulders mysteriously. In addition to this, after he woke up, he inexplicably asked the flight attendants in the first-class cabin to send him several business magazines. Reading books was fine. After reading for a while, this guy would pick up his cup, take a big gulp of water, and then put the cup down tastelessly, with a look of great regret on his face. Lu Fei felt a headache. How can you feel like you're enlightened by drinking a mouthful of water? At this time in Qin Guang's mind he was thinking, I'm going to become a millionaire and I'm about to step on the broad road of life. How to spend money, how to make money, such a high-level skill, I must master it as soon as possible. After thinking about it, the most reliable way was to ask for help from the heavenly Holy Grail. That was why he purposely read business magazines, intending to forcibly rely on business methods. In the end, halfway through, when he felt that he was almost done and was about to summon the world in the cup by luck, he suddenly remembered that it was the world of punishment this time. Seeing that Ling Tian couldn't bear such a high-level cultivation system of business ability, he then put the cup down disinterestedly. Chapter 221. Brother Qinguang, don't tell me you're nervous because you're going to participate in the car racing competition? There's no need to, as long as you perform normally, no one can outrun you. Lu Fei couldn't stand it anymore and asked. Qinguang turned his head abruptly and looked straight at her. No. I'm just thinking, after I earn this sum of money, what should I do to make more money as soon as possible so that I can become a super rich like you and Zhong Bai's family? You're not nervous at all. You're reading business magazines now because you're already thinking about how to spend this money. You haven't even seen your own car and you're already thinking about spending money. Doing business. Lu Fei, who was traumatized, only replied with these 3 words. What you said makes sense, but it's the same as saying nothing. Lu Fei snorted, just like that day when you pretended to teach me the real thing but ended up running back to school at 80 miles per hour. This was retribution in one's life. Qinguang was in a pain in the ass, getting caught in his own trap. I'm sorry. I'll give you special training later, okay? Qinguang decisively betrayed his oath. Lu Fei looked him up and down. I heard that someone swore not to teach people to race anymore? Lu Fei dealt a fatal blow to Qinguang. Qinguang shrugged forcefully. Don't mind the details, oaths are meant to be broken. I always feel that you're trying to deceive people and trick me. Fine, even if you don't lie, I don't want to learn anymore. Recently Wang Qing got into trouble and he wasn't the only one affected. I don't want to race anymore. Just because I like racing doesn't mean I have to race myself, and not many fans watching the World Cup really know how to play football. Lu Fei dealt a fatal blow to Qinguang. KO. Fine, you win. Lord Guang announced his surrender. I'm just kidding. Lu Fei laughed heartily. She had finally taken revenge for being tricked by him back then. She stretched out her long fingers and poked Qinguang's shoulder fiercely. You're too anxious. Doing business isn't something that can be easily done. I'm not very proficient in it myself. If you really want to learn, you can come work for me after a while and start learning slowly from the beginning. The way of doing business is profound. What I'm most afraid of is being dragged along without any investment. This bit of money of yours will be squandered away in minutes. Qinguang pursed his lips. I don't believe it. I'm a genius, I learn everything quickly. I heard that you know Tang Ying's younger brother, Tang Xiaokai? Lu Fei suddenly asked. Qinguang nodded. We've met once. Why did you suddenly mention that young man? He's a genius, right? He's only 24 years old, but he's already the helmsman of several companies and has a net worth of billions. Qinguang nodded. I admit Brother Xiaokai is a genius. Lu Fei blinked her eyes and looked at Qinguang with a smile. He probably started learning to do business when he was about 20 years old. Do you know how much money he lost in his first year? I don't know. Lu Fei held up 3 fingers. 3 million. Lu Fei shook her head. 30 million. She continued to shake her head. Qinguang began to lose his composure. 300 million. US dollars. Faster, see. Lu Fei covered his mouth. Manners. Manners. This is the noble first-class cabin. Don't let our international friends look down on you. When Qinguang was about to suffocate to death, the female pirate let go of his hand and looked at him angrily. Do you think it's easy to learn how to do business? Wasn't that a lesson that was learned by throwing money at them? Tang Xiaokai had also lost $300 million in the first year. In the second year he had worked hard to raise funds, and it hadn't been easy for him to raise another 100 million. Taking advantage of the turbulent financial market in the past few years, he had finally switched from finance to real estate and actually controlled several companies. That was how he had managed to reach his current scale. You want to be rich with this little bit of money? Qinguang touched his face and thought to himself, I have a tiger in my heart, but I can't let it out to bite people. This is the biggest stumbling block in front of me, okay? However, Lu Fei's idea was good. Things should be done step by step. He could really consider working for her later. Although he didn't know what she did, she seemed to be very capable. If I work for you, you won't make things difficult for me, right? Lu Fei smiled wickedly. No, I'll let you be my secretary. If there's something, a secretary will do it. If there's nothing, shut up. Don't ruin your glorious image in my heart. As the two rambled and ridiculed each other, they finally arrived at Xianxia. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon, only 3.5 hours before the official race in the evening. After arriving in Xianxia, Lu Fei had arranged a car in advance and sent them directly to a modification factory near the mountain track, where Wang Qing's masterpiece was waiting for Qin Guang. Placed in the most conspicuous position in the indoor parking lot of the modification factory was a bright Nissan GTR painted completely with black matte paint. It quietly stopped there like a dull and bloodthirsty beast. On the surface it looked just like a sports GTR, but just by looking at its price, it was obvious that it had been reborn. Whether it was the engine, the powertrain system, or even the steering control, every part related to performance was no longer the original. This was a mechanical monster that could erupt with a tsunami-like charge at any time. It was just wearing the skin of a little sheep Nissan GTR, but its bones were already filled with the smell of blood belonging to engine oil. Holding back his excitement, Qin Guang walked around the car with a smile, reaching out to touch the matte paint on the car from time to time. In the next 7 days he would fight side by side with it and create a legend that only belonged to him. Obviously, Wang Qing had an inexplicable preference for the Nissan GTR. Qin Guang secretly thought that it was because he was not proficient in the ejection start that ultimately led to the tragedy of rushing off the cliff. This must be the case. Like me, I'm so smooth, a mere ejection start is nothing. Lu Fei, what is this button for? Why haven't I seen it on the previous cars? Nos. With my English level, I can't even recognize what this word is. The two ran on the test track. Qin Guang turned his head and asked Lu Fei, who was sitting in the passenger seat, curiously looking at the red button in front of him. Don't panic. I'm the god of racing, what's there to be afraid of? Do you think I can fly? Don't press it. This is a nitrogen acceleration system. Can really fly. Before he finished speaking, there was a loud bang from the back of the GR, and the whole car suddenly accelerated. The strong push made Lu Fei feel like her neck was about to be broken. Lu Fei's head was tightly pressed against the back of the passenger seat, her face pale, and she screamed in shock, clutching the handle above her head tightly. Although she also knew how to race, she had never tried something as crazy as a nitrogen acceleration system. She was completely stunned. If she had known that Wang Qing had installed the NOS on the magically modified car, she would not have gotten in no matter what, and Qin Guang would not have been able to get in the car. He would have dismantled it first. Qin Guang was also stunned. At that moment he suddenly remembered that many years ago when he was still a teenager playing single-player games. Alright, 2 years ago he played Need for Speed. There was such a thing in it. In real life he had never really seen anyone install such a thing in a car. He only knew that when playing Need for Speed, once the NOS system was pressed, the acceleration effect would be too explosive, and the entire scene would turn into fog. Today it did not seem to be much better. Before accelerating he was already close to 200 km per hour. In just a few seconds he had crossed 250 km per hour and was heading towards 300 km per hour. There was a big curve in front of him. Fortunately, his dynamic vision had been tested by the 400 km per hour magically modified Alto in the Racing God training ground. After a short moment of shock he quickly recovered. He released the button, lightly hit the brake and began to turn the steering wheel. Hit the accelerator. Start drifting. The magically modified GTR pulled a big curve on the test track, and the friction between the wheels and the track caused thick smoke to fill the air. The rear of the car lightly brushed against the track's guardrail, and then it swung along the edge of the track in a beautiful big arc. Good, it floated past unscathed. Finally, when Qin Guang stopped the car, Lu Fei took deep breaths one after another, and her soul was about to leave her body. Awesome! Beside her, Qin Guang suddenly burst out with such a word. Her eyes darkened and she almost fainted. Oh no, this thing definitely couldn't be dismantled. Chapter 222. I say, let's dismantle that thing, shall we? The female pirate, Lu Fei, who was dressed in a sexy leather suit, forcibly squeezed out the appearance of a delicate little sister. She desperately shook Qin Guang's hand, acting coquettishly. Qin Guang turned his head to look at her. He was almost moved by this big sister's soft tone, but he finally shook his head. No, I won't dismantle it. I'm aiming for 7 consecutive victories. This thing is the last resort. If I dismantle it, others will have it. Someone else uses this trick to win, who can I reason with? Lu Fei blushed. But you're not very familiar with the NOS system. You also don't understand the half-mountain racetrack. Although I have complete confidence in you like Wang Qing, I didn't think about the NOS system before. You didn't even recognize this thing just now. Qin Guang smiled, thinking that he was handsome, showing his white teeth. Don't forget, the old man is the god of racing. As long as it's something in the car, even if I haven't used it before, as long as I touch it once, it's not a problem. Don't worry. Also, you can't be in the car during the race. No. Why? Lu Fei didn't agree. Although she had secretly decided not to race to be able to sit next to Qin Guang and watch, this kind of thing made her blood boil. How could she miss the opportunity? Besides, she was fooled so badly by this guy last time. Until now, she hadn't really seen him race in the car. Qin Guang shook his head firmly. Because I have something outside that I need you to help me deal with. My good sister. Help me this time. I don't want to show my face. I want to win so many cars from others. We're poor and ugly. We have no identity and no status. What if those evil villains have their eyes on us? So after the race, I'll let you choose the car. You're my spokesperson. This doesn't conflict with whether I get in the car or not. Lu Fei insisted. Qin Guang shook his head again. There's a second reason. I want to be the god of racing. I want to run the fastest. I have to lose weight. You're too heavy. Burn more oil. It's a waste of energy. Lu Fei, this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. I'll burn an Audi for you. Alright, I'll stop joking. Let me be serious. Ever since I've learned how to drive, I've always been alone in the car. If there's someone beside me, it'll affect my performance. Is this reason enough? Lu Fei was silent. Although she knew that he was talking nonsense, she couldn't do anything about it. Alright. If anything happens to you, I'll help you take care of your family. Friends like me are hopeless. Aren't you afraid of that? Don't be so pessimistic. I'm still young. I won't joke around with my life. Qin Guang suddenly appeared very mature and prudent. Then here's the question. Why are your hands on my butt? As Lu Fei spoke, she pinched Qin Guang's waist and picked up a small piece of flesh. Qin Guang grimaced in pain, but his hand that was rubbing Lu Fei's but refused to let go. Old man is still a virgin at this age. If I'm unlucky today, at least I can remember the feel of your hand when I go down. *CK. Lu Fei slapped Qin Guang's hand away. Her face was red, but strangely she didn't seem very angry. Truth be told, she knew that despite Qin Guang's relaxed expression, he had never participated in a competition in the past. Furthermore, he had a reason to win, so it wasn't unreasonable for him to lose his composure under the immense pressure. After a simple dinner at 7 o'clock with Qin Guang's Matt Jeter leading the way, followed by 3 Chevrolet off-road vehicles, they set off. The mountain racetrack had been famous for a long time. It was a mixed bag of good people and bad people. Lu Fei was worried that a strong dragon couldn't suppress a local snake. To be on the safe side, she simply used her connections in Xianxia to pull a local big shot who had a very high position in Xianxia to go to the race. She also brought 3 cars of bodyguards in black suits to help hold the line in case of accidents. After arriving at the place, Qin Guang didn't plan to get out of the car. As he said, he didn't want people to notice his appearance from beginning to end. Even at this time, he was wearing a V special agent mask that he found at the last minute. Lu Fei was a little nervous sitting in the co-driver's seat. It wasn't that she hadn't seen a big scene, but as a person who liked racing, she finally came to the holy land of the underground racing world. Beside her was the strongest racer in history who was about to amaze the world. When she thought that she was about to become a witness and one of the creators of a legend, she couldn't suppress her excitement. It was not even 8 o'clock at this time, but the sky had gradually darkened. The sun had already set, leaving only a scarlet afterglow shining on the horizon. When the afterglow was completely dark, it announced the official start of the annual mountain racing competition. The mountain racing track was indeed full of demons. The huge parking lot was several times larger than the parking lot of Fengquan Mountain. As far as the eye could see, all kinds of expensive luxury cars and supercars were listed. Among the people coming and going, there were strangely dressed young men. There were also businessmen in suits and leather shoes who were unrestrained, and there were also cold-faced bodyguards in tight clothes. What this place didn't lack the least were racers who wore revealing clothes and walked around alluringly. But the most sought after were the racers who arrogantly and impudently sat on the roof of their cars and loudly proclaimed how they were going to kill everyone tonight. This was the holy land of racing. No matter how rich or powerful you were outside in this place, driving skills were the most important measure of status in the Jianghu. Any officially registered racer would be surrounded by at least a few beautiful girls. These racers, whose adrenaline was already running out of control, talked loudly with others while smugly groping the bodies of the racers next to them. Some of them even put their hands into the girls' necklines in front of everyone. Not only did the girls not make a fuss, but they only smiled and twisted their bodies, which further stimulated the crazy hormones of these people. The first-generation Xinguang master expressed extreme envy. If it wasn't for the fact that he had made up his mind to hide his face from the very beginning and not let these extraordinary fellows remember or recognize his identity, he would have jumped out and yelled, "Damn it, I'm the one who is the most arrogant, at least give me 2 girls." He felt sorry for himself. What a loss. No way. I can't admit my loss. They haven't started the race yet and there are already girls touching me. I can't lose in terms of aura at the beginning. He turned his attention to Lu Fei beside him. To be honest, although those racer girls all wore heavy makeup when it came to appearance, the female pirate Lu Fei beside him, even if she didn't have any makeup on, she would still be better than all the racer girls. After all, she was a full-score goddess and not something those vulgar girls could compare with. Today, Lu Fei was still wearing a short leather jacket, and the thin leather pants on her lower body revealed her slender thighs. Really made Qin Guang drool. When Qin Guang turned his head over, Lu Fei also turned her head over at the same time. Through the mask of the special forces, the two of them looked at each other. Qin Guang's brain was spinning wildly and he had an idea in an instant. Although my acting skills are terrible, I have a mask now. He deliberately increased his breathing, and the breath that came out of his mouth blew hard on the mask, making a whirring sound. From his eyes, Lu Fei saw a touch of madness that only belonged to a beast. She knew that Qin Guang was infected by the atmosphere of this place. He was no longer a bystander but was about to really participate in it. In fact, Lu Fei herself was not much better. Humans were such strange creatures. When she was in such a crazy and unrestrained environment, and the man sitting next to her was a man she didn't hate and even admired, even Lu Fei easily let down her guard. She grinned. "What's wrong? Do you want to touch something?" Chapter 223. Qin Guang's eyes lit up. He tilted his head and looked at her with a burning gaze. "Can I?" Lu Fei turned her head to look outside again. Colorful smoke filled the air and covered the sky. Under the bright lights, men and women with torn masks intertwined with each other. The huge parking lot was filled with a decadent atmosphere that stirred up people's hearts. Racing had always been something that required passion and hot blood. Women could also arouse men's desire and craziness. Women, on the other hand, were fiercely attacked by hormones and smoke and gradually became seductive. Those racing girls shuttled through the crowd like butterflies. Perhaps it was because of this or that in their hearts and their usual self-indulgence, that they were so presumptuous. Lu Fei, whose status was originally not equal to these people, still couldn't help but be influenced by these beautiful women of the same sex. If they were so indulgent, why couldn't I? Letting him touch them wouldn't hurt a piece of flesh and no one would know what happened in this car. Lu Fei's courage gradually grew and her breathing became heavy. She tilted her oval face slightly and stared at Qin Guang with a pair of beautiful starry eyes. She said softly, "If you also need this kind of stimulation to stimulate the blood in your heart, if it helps you in racing, then you can." Qin Guang was also excited. He had long been envious of the other racers who were surrounded by women. He would be a bastard if he didn't take advantage of the situation. His goal was so clear. He stretched out his left hand and went straight for Lu Fei's perky chest. "Wait. It can't be here." At the last moment, Lu Fei still flinched a little. She fiercely grabbed Qin Guang's left hand that was stretched out. Qin Guang couldn't hide his disappointment. His disappointed eyes pierced Lu Fei's heart through the mask of the special agent team. But Lu Fei's face was red and she smiled decisively. She pressed Qin Guang's hand down, lifted her but slightly and cushioned his hand. Here. Qin Guang was overjoyed. He exerted force with his left hand and felt the amazing elasticity and fullness. Lu Fei let out a delicate moan. Oh, she didn't know what was wrong with her today. She only had a vague thought, I've been a good person to the end this time. Not only did I escort him but I also personally brought him to the dining table. I'm simply a great man. She tried hard to suppress the strange emotions in her heart and turned to look at Qin Guang. Suppressing her trembling voice she said, if you don't give me the title of Car King I won't forgive you. 15 minutes, a whole 15 minutes later. Finally, it was Qin Guang's turn to fight in the second group. His demonic claws never stopped for even a second. This fellow really didn't hold back. My right butt is almost swollen from your pinching. In between he even tried to pull his hand up a few times, and then tried to squeeze in through the gap of the leather pants. I absolutely cannot allow it. Lu Fei let out a long sigh of relief and turned to look at Qin Guang's pants that were about to burst. She almost laughed out loud. She didn't know where she got the courage from but she stretched out her finger and gave the tent a hard flick. Ouch! Qin Guang yelled as he retracted his hand. Ouch! On the other side, Lu Fei had already taken the opportunity to open the car door. She turned to look at Qin Guang and smiled. Get ready to go, my car god. Let's win the first battle a little better, right? As she spoke, her plump chest heaved up and down crazily, like a sailboat floating on the waves. Her face was flushed with excitement, and her breathing was extremely heavy. It was unknown whether it was because of Qin Guang, or because she was completely immersed in the crazy atmosphere outside. Adjusting the mask on his face, Qin Guang suppressed the excitement in his heart. Although some parts of his body were still swollen, he chuckled and replied, of course. I won't lose. Come on. Lu Fei said as she got out of the car. She just got out of the car and closed the door. Qin Guang, who was inside, added, by the way, why is the steering wheel of all the cars in Xianxia on the right? I have to use my left hand to control the gear lever. I'm a little not used to it. You're not used to the right steering wheel? Aren't you the car god? Lu Fei was dumbfounded. At this time, Qin Guang had already started the car and was ready to enter the queue of cars. The number he drew was number 3, which happened to be in the second row of the queue. Lu Fei stood in the same place in a daze. Her mind was completely blank. Crazy. Why didn't I think of this before? Is it because his car god's brilliance is too dazzling that I didn't notice it at all? Speaking of which, you're too insensitive. You only thought of this problem at this time. Your car god title is a little exaggerated. I thought you were already used to it. But you didn't try it at all. There was basically no adaptation process. It was just the few minutes on the test track when he first arrived, and the 3 kilometers from the modification factory to here. In addition, he was completely unfamiliar with the mountain track. It was his first time and he had only roughly looked at the map before. For ordinary mainlanders, it was quite strange and awkward to use the right steering wheel, driving on the left and shifting with the left hand. There was no adaptation process at all. An avalanche of 2 unfavorable openings. Didi Smita. Lu Fei suddenly felt that her head was a little black and her legs were weak. She almost couldn't stand steadily. She even forgot about the charm brought about by Qin Guang's random pinching just now. No matter how she thought about it, she felt that it was F***ket up. This couldn't be the last time that guy pinched a woman's butt in his life, right? Oh my god. If I had known earlier, I would have let him reach in and touch. I can even give you breast. Lu Fei began to panic. Actually, Lu Fei thought too highly of Qin Guang's insensitivity. Of course, Qin Guang had discovered this problem long ago. But what could he do? He couldn't not turn the steering wheel just because it was on the right? He was already here and everyone's car was the same. There was no time to change the steering wheel from the right to the left. This was a big project. So he bit the bullet and did it. After all, the old man's left hand was very nimble just now. He should be a reliable partner, right? Just now, Qin Guang had been madly touching her butt with his left hand for a while, and suddenly thought of this matter, so he said it casually. Sister Lu Fei? What's the name of this brother car god? Lu Fei returned to the Chevrolet off-road in a daze. Slightly further away, a guy with dyed blonde hair and an afro suddenly came over and said. Lu Fei turned to look at this guy and rolled her eyes. Ajia, let me ask you a question. How long does it take to change the steering wheel from the right to the left? Ajia jumped back. Don't talk to me about this. If you really want to change, don't compete. Withdraw from the competition first. This Ajia was Wang Qing's friend who helped him get a car in Xianxia. He could be regarded as a local expert in changing cars in Xianxia. People called him Golden Wrench Ajia. However, Lu Fei always felt that since he was from a barber shop, it was more appropriate to call him Golden Scissors. There was a very famous haircut in Wujing City called Ajia. Then it seems that there's really no other way. God bless. Don't ask my brother car god what's his name. He doesn't want people to know his true identity. Lu Fei sighed deeply. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.